And today we're going to go through follow-up funnels. Get a little water in me here, and really not just follow-up funnels, but the actual process of following up. And what I want to run through initially is kind of a breakdown for everybody, because what I find is a lot of people don't realize all the different ways that you can actually interact with your customers inside of ClickFunnels, and all the ways that you can follow up and should follow up. And some of them work for certain purposes. Or are better for certain purposes than others. And so that's kind of what I want to run through today, and just kind of break all that down. So feel free to go through. Definitely want to try and get through all this and answer as many questions as I can. Probably try and get through as many of the different ways as I can, because what we'll find as you go through this is that questions will come up, but I'll probably cover the questions before we get to the end anyway. So then we'll kind of hold off, answer any questions at the end. We can kind of run through some examples, and I'll even share some ways that we use these specifically within ClickFunnels. And like when we do live events and things like that, we actually use follow-up funnels to sell those things even in a live process to help expedite the process and kind of automate interactions with customers that way. So let's just dive right in. So like I said, I want to run through and show the different ways that you can interact with your customers. And so one of the things that we've done is we've created a funnel already for our Yoga Funnel Secrets product. We've got our live funnel and we've got our membership area funnel. So let's go ahead and dive into this live funnel. Actually, I'm going to back up and I'm going to open this in a separate window here. Let's see if this is, there we go. So we're going to open this up in a separate window. And then one of the first things that you want to look at is we've got registration pages. When we've got webinars, in this case, we've got a live webinar going. And in this case, we do want to send some automated follow-ups, and that's just to confirm the webinar registration itself. So we set this up in Zoom as our webinar, and you might use GoToWebinar or Webinar Jam or some other service. Most of those services also provide some sort of an automated follow-up for that confirmation that, hey, you're registered and you're good to go for this event. But I always like to send those from ClickFunnels as well, because you have a lot more control over the look and the feel of the actual emails themselves. And so what I normally do in those scenarios is I want to, on the webinar confirmation page, is I want to set up an automation that gives somebody that email for thanks for registering. And so, and this is a little confusing for a lot of people, especially when they first come into ClickFunnels. So the everyone method here, the everyone event can be a little bit confusing, because everyone doesn't actually mean everyone. Everyone means everyone who we know who they are, which means they've registered on our form. They're a known contact. We have their email address. We know who they are. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to send them an actual email. So everyone doesn't mean every person that lands on this page, send them an email, because if they haven't actually registered and they land on this page, we have no way of sending that. So that's the one thing that I want to cover there. It can be a little confusing, but that's what this means is anybody who's given us their email address, send them this email. The reason that I throw this onto this webinar confirmation page is because sometimes if you throw this onto, and I've seen this in the past, I haven't actually tested this recently, but if you have the automation on the actual registration page, it will work there as well. And you can see we've got an add to registrants list on the automations here. And this says when somebody's visited this page and we know who they are, add them to the registrant list. So we have a list, an email list we can send out, we can send an email to later. We can put that one here, and it doesn't matter how many times somebody lands on this page. If we know who they are, they'll just be added to the list, and they're already added to the list. So that's great. It's not going to cause any harm or foul if it fires again. But I've seen in the past, if you add an email here and somebody comes back to your registration page after they've already registered once, that email may actually fire again. And that can be a little bit confusing. So generally, you're not going to see people land on the webinar confirmation page a lot. So I tend to add the automation there. And it also confirms that somebody actually registered. So they'll only see this page if they've registered. So I want to put that automation where I know they've already taken the action I want them to take. So that's why I put the emails generally on the confirmation pages, or in the case of an order form, you might put it on the first OTO page or something like that, so that you know that they've been successful in taking the action that you want them to take before you actually send that confirmation. So this you would set up, and this one you can actually go in once you've created this email. So let's actually just step through creating a new one. We obviously stepped through and created this one previously, but we'll just, again, to kind of catch everybody up, we'll run through this one again. So what we want to do is click the add new email here, and then you're going to put in your from name. This can be whatever you want it to be, and you can rotate these things if you want to. I tend to like to stay the same, but if you have a larger audience, and say, for example, with ClickFunnels, sometimes we'll send emails from different people. Even though they're all coming through the same email address, the from name might be different. And the reason for that is to, some people get blind, right? They get blind to, oh yeah, Russell sent me 100 emails over the last couple of weeks. I'm not ready to listen to it. But if you've taken some sort of action and you get something from somebody that's not Russell, maybe it comes from Melanie, who's Russell's assistant, or maybe it comes from Nick, who's our lead funnel builder, or maybe it comes from Jake Leslie, who's our lead designer, or maybe it comes from somebody on our social media team or something like that, that's a little bit different. Then you know, hey, this is coming from ClickFunnels, but it's another person at ClickFunnels. And that sometimes will spur people to actually pay a little more attention. But you can put whatever from name you want to, and then you can put in your subject here. And I'm having troubles typing today, evidently. So testing email, and then you choose your SMTP configuration. So we actually have a couple of different ones here. We've got my main one for CF Pro Tools, and then we've got the Yoga Funnels HQ SMTP that was set up. So I'm going to choose that one. And then you can send only to subscribers active in the past X number of days. So this one, in this case, we don't need to even worry about that because somebody just registered. So they're going to have been active in, immediately. So it's not really something you need to worry about, but you'll see this field in several different spots where you can send emails. And what that does is it helps you filter out people that maybe subscribed a year ago, but they have never interacted with your emails. If you filter those people out and don't send to them, it helps the deliverability for the people that are still active on your list. Because email service providers like Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, if anybody still uses Hotmail, Outlook.com, all those, they tend to look at how many people of all of our customers have received this email. And they group things by subject lines, who it comes from. They know when you're sending out batch emails, and they look and see how many of our customers are actually opening this email, how many of our customers are clicking on this email, how many of our customers are replying to these emails. And then they score it based on that, whether it should be spam or whether it's promotional or whether it's, whether it should go straight to the inbox. So if you send out a huge batch of emails and a very, very small percentage of people actually open them, or a very small percentage actually click anything in them or interact with that email in any sort of way, then they tend to look and say, okay, this is more likely to be spam because we have such a small percentage of people that receive the email actually interact with it at all. So this is a good way to kind of filter out and say, hey, I only want to, for this particular email, only want to interact with people that have been active, say, in the last 30 days. Somebody that's recently registered for something, or has opened an email, or has clicked an email, or has replied to an email, or done something to interact with our ClickFunnels account. And that kind of helps to improve that deliverability for those people that you are sending emails to. So that's just something to keep in mind as you create emails, and you'll see them in here. You'll see them as well when you go to create actual follow-up funnels and broadcasts. You can add that filter. So that's kind of what that does. We don't need to worry about it here. This person just registered, so anybody should get this if they just registered. And then the condition again is everyone, because this is people that just registered. We know who they are, so we want to send out to all of those people. There's also another event here called the missed webinar. You wouldn't really ever probably put a missed webinar event on this on this page, because this is the confirmation page, but you may use it in things like replay pages to interact with somebody that's landed on a replay page that actually missed the webinar. You might want to send them a different email. It's one that I honestly don't use often, but it's there if you need it. And you'll see in a few others as we go through and look at order forms, there's a few different ones that you can look at. live webinar funnels also have, or automated webinar funnels have some different ones as well. So we can actually create an automated webinar funnel and show you some of those different events or conditions that we can look at there. So, and then you just pick a template. And so you got a whole list of templates here. So I've got one that I use that's left aligned, which makes it a little more, people view that. That's how your friends write you an email, right? When you go into Gmail and you type up an email and you send it to somebody, it's not center aligned in their window. That's kind of a known marketing message. If you get that and you see that that message is center aligned, then you know right off the bat that, hey, this is a marketing message. And a lot of people will just, skip over or skim it and not even pay any attention to it. So I like to use this left aligned template that I created. And so we're gonna go ahead and use that one. And then we've got all our fields filled out, I believe. The other thing that you should be aware of is that there is an email delay. And you might use this. In this case, we've got a delay from webinar time. And that we're not really going to use on a live webinar. We're generally going to follow up with broadcasts on a live webinar, but an automated webinar, you do want to probably set this related to the webinar time so that if they registered for a webinar and say you're running it once a day, or you're running it every hour, then you can actually send an email 15 minutes before the webinar starts, or 15 minutes before the time that they actually registered for, so that they get emails based on when, reminder emails that are more close in proximity to when the webinar is getting ready to start for them. But email delays, you could set an email, hey, I want to send this out, especially you would do this something on like an order form. If you want to, hey, somebody bought something and you want to send them a sequence, you could do this through automated emails in the automations tab and just delay them over a period of time. Say, okay, somebody orders, I want to send one immediately. And then 1 day later, so you could delay by 1 day here. 1 day later, send them another email. 2 days later, send them another email, and go on through that. So automations are a way to do that. Speaking of that, one big difference between automations and follow-up funnels, which if we go into ActionX, if you have the $297 ClickFunnels account, you'll have these additional options, broadcast and follow-up funnels. So follow-up funnels are a way to set up, it would be more similar to a process or a tool like ActiveCampaign or Aweber or MailChimp. Those are autoresponder services. So Actionetics has those sort of autoresponder services, and they're called follow-up funnels. They used to be called email campaign, or excuse me, they were called action funnels. So you could set up a series of emails to get sent out when somebody starts, and you could base them on delays. The difference being that with follow-up funnels, somebody can only go through that follow-up funnel one time. So once they've been through it, they won't go through it again currently. Hopefully they'll change that in the future. But right now, if somebody's been through a follow-up funnel, they won't go through it a second time. But if you have an order and somebody comes in and buys something and you want to send them a fulfillment email, but you put it into a follow-up funnel, if they bought from you before, they won't get that follow-up funnel again. So you'll want to use those outside of a follow-up funnel. So those order confirmation emails, things like that, you'll want to use automations for, because the automations will fire every time somebody takes that action, every time somebody orders, every time somebody lands on this page, every time somebody registers, whatever, they'll get those automated emails that come from the automations tab, but they won't necessarily get those in follow-up funnels. So that's one key difference there, and why you would want to use automations versus using a follow-up funnel, which we'll go through here in just a little bit. Okay, so this is just kind of the email delay. We don't necessarily need a delay on this one, so we can just go back and we can we've got everything filled out. So now all we have to do is click our create email. And now we've got our email created and what we want to do. And honestly, I wish this was a little bit different, because if you're adding things to a live funnel, then you're going to want to be aware that you just created an email that the next person that comes in and registers is going to get that email, even though you've not changed the content. So that's the one downside to having it go this way, is as soon as you click create email, it goes live. So just be aware of that. It's something you can work with, but just know you're going to want to change your content right away, because if you're doing this on a live funnel and you're getting a lot of traffic to it, you can add these things in, but they're going live right away, and so you're going to want to update this content right away. So once you click the edit email, then your template is going to pull up and all the content's in there. So you can see I've got my footer and my copyright notice and all that fun stuff, my terms and conditions and all that stuff already built into this template. So I don't have to recreate that every time. All I have to do is come in here and change my content. And so that's what we get here. So we want to do that right away. And this is really very similar to what you'll see when we go to edit the emails in the follow-up funnels. So the editor is very, very similar, and in all cases when it comes to editing emails. And so that's kind of what we get there. And now when somebody registers on the first page and they land on the second page, we know who they are. They're going to get these two emails, the thanks for registering, which this one should have. So it's just a template email. I didn't change the content on that one either. This is just one little thing to be aware of in ClickFunnels currently. Hopefully they'll get this changed at some point, but you'll notice that when I click this, it kind of reloads a little bit. And it's a little hard to tell in this one. Actually, let's change this content just so we can see what's happening here. And it's because I'm hovering over that orange that it's kind of hiding that. So we're just going to save this one to testing the content, and then we're going to close this out. But now if we go in and click Open Editor, you'll notice that it started with the testing the content. What it does is it basically hides that email editor from the first one, and then it shows it again, and then it has to load the content. So if you ever go in and click on one of these, or you're editing multiple emails and you notice that the content's different the first time through, that's why. Just something to be aware of. It's not a big deal. Once it loads your content, like this one, it's going to load right away, the initial content. Even if I go back now and close this and go back to editing my first one, this should just say testing the content. When I pull this up, it's going to start with the content of the last email I was editing. So just something to be aware of there. Little bugaboo. So that's automation emails for creating an automations tab for things like the webinar confirmation. Let's look at our order form. And we'll notice on our order form that we have some different options. On this one, we have everyone. We have saw page but didn't purchase, and then we have purchased. So these are some events that are a little bit different. So you could send somebody an automation only when they purchase a product, which is good. You can send somebody an email when they don't purchase, so we know who they are. They registered on the webinar registration, or you could start with an opt-in page before your order form, and they opt in to get some sort of a coupon or a discount. And then they land on the order form, but they didn't actually buy. Then you could send them a separate email. And that's one where you will actually want to delay that by a period of time, because you want people to be able to land on the page and not actually fire the automation until they've had a chance to take the action. So for example, in this one, the order form, we know who they are. They landed on this page. I want to be able to send what we might consider an abandoned cart email. This would also work for a two-step order form. If we had a two-step order form, when somebody fills in their details on step one, where they put in their name and email address and maybe even the shipping address, and then they go to step two, what happens behind the scenes is that ClickFunnels will take that data they filled in at step one and create a contact record for that person, but never reload the page. So it's happening behind the scenes. It happens via Ajax, and we'll see a little bit more about how Ajax functions and what it's for and what the purpose of it is when we get into the custom JavaScript module. But it fires via Ajax. And that code, that call reaches out to ClickFunnels, reaches out to the same page and says, hey, create a contact for this person so that I can follow up with them later, especially in this scenario where they saw the offer, but they didn't actually purchase the product. So we call those abandoned cart sequences. So you can come in here and say, hey, somebody came in, they saw my page, they saw my order form, but they didn't actually buy. I want to send them an email. So we can click add new email there. And then again, we fill in our details. We can put, whatever from name we want. Call it testing abandoned cart. And then we can pick our Yoga Funnels HQ SMTP. And we've set our condition to be saw page, but didn't purchase. And then we can pick a template. Again, I like this little template of mine. And then for this one, we do want to set an email delay, because what happens, and especially in the case of a two-step order form, that contact gets created right away. So we immediately know who they are. And ClickFunnels knows they've landed on the page. So if we don't have an email delay, they'll get this saw page but didn't purchase email right away, even though they've only just landed on the order form. They just clicked from step 1 to step 2. So they haven't even had a chance to actually buy yet. So we don't want to send them abandon a cart right away with no email delay. We want to set a delay of maybe at least a half an hour, maybe 15 minutes if you're feeling dangerous. But you might want to delay it by an hour or a few hours, or send them an email the next day that says, hey, I noticed that you stopped in to check out my book or check out my product, check out my course. But you didn't actually buy. Was there something that went wrong? Did you have any questions? Can I help you? And something like that. So that's what you want to start out with, an abandoned cart, but it's always important to set some sort of a delay. So in these cases, in the automations tab, we can actually set delays in hours, and we can use decimals here. So we can say 0.5 hours is going to be half an hour. What we'll notice when we go into follow-up funnels is that we can't use decimals. They have to be whole numbers. And so you're going to be limited a little bit in that way versus an automation. And the reason this comes in really handy is when you're doing things like reminder emails for automated webinars, that you want to be able to send them an email like 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the webinar starts. So you can use decimals in that case. And so that's really important. In this case, we want to be able to say a half an hour after they land on this page, if they haven't bought by then, go ahead and send them this email. So we'll go ahead and create that email. And we've got that. The other one we can do is set up, and when they actually do purchase, we can send them another email or a different email. And there's a few ways that we can do that with the purchased. And it depends on how we set up our products, whether we want to use this automation for just a general purposed, purchased, or if we want to send them an email specific to a product. And so a lot of times I would recommend doing it on the product, but if you're selling multiple products on the same order form, and you're doing something like CF cart mode where you're allowing to pick multiples of the same product or pick multiple products, then they'll end up getting multiple emails if you set it up on the product fulfillment email. So that's where I would go with using this purchased action here. So you can send one email to say, hey, thanks for your purchase. We're going to get your order out right away. Or if it's a members area, here's how to access your members area. All the courses will be inside of there. Or look out for another email from our shipping system. If you're doing e-commerce, that's going to give you all the details of your order. We appreciate your order. We're processing it now. But generally, I would just send a very basic email. If you're doing e-commerce specifically, a very basic email from ClickFunnels, and then use your external system, your shipping system, where you're actually delivering those products, whether it be Shopify, whether it be ShipStation, or some other tool. I would use that as the delivery mechanism for your emails that have the actual order summary. Unfortunately, ClickFunnels wasn't built to work with e-commerce and doesn't have a lot of those tools at the moment. So when somebody purchases multiples of a product, there's no way to put in an order summary of everything they ordered throughout the process, and especially when it comes to OTO pages. If you've got, if they buy something on order form, and then they buy something on an OTO page, and then they buy something else on another OTO page, there's no way to say, hey, I want to send them one email that says thank you for your order, unless you just do one from the order form. But if you want to send them an email that says, hey, here's everything you bought through this process, one email, you'll need to use an external service for that, like Shopify or ShipStation. But one other thing that we might want to do in here that's not necessarily email related, but is very, very important, is actually adding them to a list, to a buyer's list. And so we can not only add emails, we can actually send text messages. These, again, are great for things like for automated webinars or even live webinars. You might send somebody a text message as soon as they register, say, hey, thanks so much. If they put in their phone number and they agree to receive text, then you can send them a text message. So you have that option here. You could just pick who do I want to send it to. I'm going to send it to everyone. You pick your integration, and it's going to be Twilio of some sort. send the message here or set the message, and you need to keep these short. And then you can again set them by delays, and then a text message will get sent out based on those actions. So those would be things you might want to do for automated webinars. When somebody registers, also, hey, the webinar's coming up. Hey, the webinar's getting ready to start in 10 minutes. Don't forget to miss it, or don't miss it. Don't forget to go get logged in early. Using a text message related to that. If they register on your form and give you their phone number, and I recommend doing that if possible. It works really, really well. So, but that's just one other sort of action that we can take here on the automations tab. So we're going to close this one out now, but another one is we can take just add a new action, and this allows you to do multiple things. So what we can do here is create one called add to buyers list. So I use this function a lot, and you can even be more specific about which list. This is just generally add to buyers list, but it could be add to Yoga Funnel, YFS buyers list. So we can identify it a little more closely, and we can say, hey, when somebody purchases, I want to do this. I want to take the integration is always going to be ClickFunnels internal, which is Actionetics, and then the action you want to take. Do you want to add them to a list? Do you want to remove them from a list? Do you want an email notification, which is a way that you can actually have an email sent to you or sent to a customer or client to say, hey, somebody just bought, you need to go pay attention. So a lot of people ask, how can I do that in ClickFunnels? How can I get a notification? I had somebody just ask this a couple of days ago on a coaching call that said, hey, I had somebody come in and buy, and I didn't even realize they bought. And then I emailed them like, hey, here's how you get in. And they're like, yeah. Or actually, I think she said, she sent them an email and said, hey, I talked to you a couple of days ago. Are you still interested? She said, yeah, I already bought, dummy. What are you talking about? Am I still interested? So she's like, is there any way I can get notified when somebody buys so that I know to actually go and pay attention to it? Because she's not in ClickFunnels every day. She's just launching a product. So she didn't even know, she didn't even think to go check, has somebody bought today, because she hasn't really even started promoting it yet. So this is the way you do that. You just pick an email notification, and then you put what email address should I notify? You put in your email address, and then it will send, ClickFunnels will send you a notification whenever somebody takes this action. When somebody purchases, you'll get their contact details, and it'll say, hey, and you can do it that way. So, and again, you can set an action delay if you want to, but on purchases, you really don't want to. You want to get that notification right away. Another thing we could do is, obviously this one we were adding to the buyers list. So we just pick add to list, and then we would go and pick which list do we want to add them to. And we don't have one yet for the buyers. So we'd create an email list and pick one. But here we have the YFS webinar registrants list. So we created that list. So we can go ahead and add them to that list. Then we just create that funnel action. And I apologize for the noise in the background if it's a little too noisy. I've got of course, the mowing crew shows up right when you're in the middle of doing recording. So hopefully it's not too loud. But we just create that funnel action. And one thing to notice too, another little bit of a bug with this one is that nothing happened, right? We don't see anything here. But if I refresh this page, then we should see that action show up. This used to all function via Ajax and actually reload the page and kind of add that action on the fly, but something's changed recently that no longer functions. So just be aware that when you click the created, it's probably there. You might have to refresh the page to be able to see it. Hopefully they'll get that fixed soon, and you may not notice it, but that's just something to be aware of. So, so that's something that we use quite a bit, is to be able to add somebody to a buyer's list when they actually purchase. Generally, when it comes to email lists, I don't have a lot of different lists. I have buyer's lists, but I don't have a buyer's list for every product. I've seen people in the past say, hey, I want to see people that have bought from the order form, people that bought from the OTO, people that bought from the second OTO, and all that. With ClickFunnels, you don't really need to do that. And I'll show you how when we get into follow-up funnels. But generally, you're going to want to interact with people who have bought from you because they're customers. And you want to be able to follow, those customers you may email differently than people that are maybe just leads, people that have opted in for a lead magnet but haven't actually ever bought something from you. So you can add them to buyer's list, or you could have a buyer's list for core products. So I have a in this case, a YFS buyers list. But I'm probably not going to have a YFS like the core course product. And then if I had, say I have a funnel where I've got, I'm selling something on an order form, and I've got two products there. I've got a core product and a bump, and then I've got another OTO and another OTO. Say it's an e-commerce funnel. I probably don't need to email. I don't need to have separate lists to know which product they bought. Did they buy the OTO? Did they buy this? You can use Smart Lists to create those sorts of things if you really need to email those people independently. But you don't probably need to add them to a static list of customers that bought specific things. You just want to know in general, hey, have they bought from me through this particular funnel or through this business? Have they bought through this brand? So you might add them to a brand or business or a funnel buyers list, which is kind of what we have here with, the YFS. We want to create an email list for buyers and add them to that list. The other thing that's a little unique to doing things like live events and processing, the way that we've done this in the past for things like when Russell speaks at different events, we might want to process those order forms. And a lot of times at that point, the customer is not actually filling out the order form and submitting it. It's actually being processed manually by our billing team. Excuse me. So what we'll want to do is when we fill that form out manually, it's not the customer, it's our billing team that's doing that. You'll see this if you've ever been to Funnel Hacking Live. You come back, you submit your order form, and then behind the scenes, we have a whole team of people that are actually processing those orders. But in those scenarios, the customer may not see that their credit card was declined. We see that, but they don't. So we need some sort of way to interact with them to let them know that, hey, you need to come back and talk with us because something happened. Your order did not go through. We could follow up with that person manually, but a lot of times we're so busy at that point in time, we don't have the time or the manpower to do that. So you can actually use these different events to actually trigger those sorts of things. So in the case, what we often will do is if we've filled out an order form at a live event, and you will usually set up a special event registration form that nobody ever sees except our billing team. And then we'll use the saw page but didn't purchase to be that customer that we've submitted the form, but they were declined. Or something happened along the way that the purchase never actually happened. So we'll add them to a list. So that we know that we tried to submit their order, but it didn't succeed. And for that person, we want to send them an email, and we'll use a follow-up funnel to send them an email or send them a sequence of emails as long as they're still on that list. So what I would do there is we'd go in and create an email list. And let's just call this, because this is going to be on our order form, let's call this, add this email list, and we'll call this one, we'll call this YFS. Let's not call it non-buyers, failed purchases. And then I'm going to put this in the CF Code Lab group. And then we're going to create new list. And so now we have a static list. This is just something we manually add people to or automatically add people to, but it's just a static list. It's not a static list versus a smart list. Follow-up funnels. A smart list is a list that's created of all your contacts filtered down by rules. And so we'll go through here in a bit and show you the difference between smart list and static list. But in this case, we just want a static list of email addresses that we add people to and remove people from. There's no rules applied to it other than did we add them, did we remove them? So we've got this YFA failed purchases email list, and we want to create one more email list for our YFA purchases, it's called YFS. So we want to do YFS buyers. YFS buyers. So we're going to create, I didn't apply the group tag here. That's okay. So now we'll go to our email lists here. And that one should show up at the top. YFS buyers, I'm actually going to edit it so we can get it in the right group. Edit list settings. And then we're going to put our CF Code Lab group in there. There we go. We're going to update this list. And now we should be able to go back to our email list and see it. And so, while we're at it, let's edit this one and spell it right, YFS Okay, YFS failed purchases. There we go. And so we've got those email lists created now, and these are just buckets that we want to put people into. So if we go back to our order form now and we say, okay, so what I want to have happen is if somebody lands on this order form and they haven't purchased, or they filled out the order form but something went wrong, I want to add them to my failed purchases list. And this would be that example where we're running a live event. Again, I just kind of, a lot of you may not be doing that, but like Dan was just working at OfferMind over the week, or last Labor Day, over Labor Day and the Monday, Tuesday of Labor Day weekend. And this would be a case where, you know, hey, we're collecting manual, or we're collecting paper order forms, and we're processing these transactions behind the scenes. You see this at Funnel Hacking Live. We see this at the Grant Cardone's events, things like that, where we're processing manually as a team, not the customer. So we want to, if somebody fails, if we try and enter their credit card and it fails, we want to be able to send them emails. So we're just going to say add to failed purchases. And the condition is they saw a page but didn't purchase, because that's only going to happen when we've actually tried to fill out the order form and we created a contact for that person. So saw a page but didn't purchase. We want to add them to a list, and we want to add them to the YFS failed purchases funnel, or I'm sorry, to the list. And we're going to do that right away. And then we want to go ahead and create the funnel action. And we're going to refresh this one. And so we add the failed purchases there, but then we're also going to do this one. We've added to the buyers list, right? So let's go ahead and add this now that we actually have the right buyers list. So we're going to put this on the YFS buyers. So we're going to update the funnel action. And then what we want to do is add actually another action here to remove them from the list, because now they've purchased. So say what will happen is often you're going to try the credit card once, and if it fails the first time, you might try it again. Maybe you mistyped something. Maybe they scribbled a letter and you weren't quite sure what it said, and so you tried it a different way, or maybe you reached out to them and they contacted you back and said, oh no, that should have been a 9, not a 6 or whatever, and you re-enter that and try again. Now it was successful. So we don't want to keep sending them emails about their purchases failed. We want to remove them from that list. So we're going to go ahead and remove from failed purchases, because now they're successful. So now, and we want this to happen on the purchased event, we're going to say remove from list, and we're going to say remove them from the failed purchases list. And again, we're going to refresh this page so we can see what we just added. This only seems to happen with actions. Emails get added right away, but actions don't for some reason. They get added, but you just don't see them on the page. So that's kind of what we have happening here. And now we actually have lists that we can attach to a follow-up funnel that sends a sequence of emails to say, hey, we tried your transaction and it failed for some reason. Please come back and see us, or please reach out, send an email to so-and-so, or call this number so we can help you get access to the thing you wanted to buy. So that's just one way we use these different events and the different sorts of actions that you can use within automations to make things happen, to kind of handle some of those automated scenarios that you want to have. Take a quick drink of water. Just real quick, is that, let me open my chat here. Looks like we've got the chat window going. So let me make sure that I'm getting that. Okay, so Dan says, does the automation work for 97 and the $19 plan? If you don't have Actionetics, where do you set up an email list? Is the email editor in the automation tab different on the 97 plan versus the 297 plan? Have you ever got email notification function to work? Okay, so the automations should work for 97 and 19, as far as I know. I've never used the $19 plan, so I don't know that for certain, but I believe that all the functionality should exist the same way. You should still be able to set up your own SMTP. The automations are all there. The only difference really is when you get Actionetics, you have additional features, but the automations work at the lowest level of ClickFunnels. So as far as I know, it'll work the same between the $97 and the $19 plan for automations, and even the $297 plan. There's not a whole lot of differences when it comes to automation tab. And if you don't have Actionetics, where do you set up an email list? It's going to be the same in Actually, that is a great question. It's been so long since I've done this without Actionetics and creating email lists, but I believe it's the same. I believe that you still get email lists under your Actionetics. That's a great question, Dan. I don't know that off the top of my head. It's been so long since I've done it without Actionetics to know for sure, but I believe you can still create email lists within the $97 plan and interact with them. Just trying to think if there's really a reason why you would do that without being able to send emails specific to that list. Because the whole point of email lists is that you can attach them to follow-up funnels. You can also organize your email contacts that way, but you probably don't really need to if there's nothing you can do with that organization. So it may not even be there at all if you don't have Actionetics. So the email list, the point of them is, and we'll see in just a bit, that you can actually create a follow-up funnel. And when you do that, you attach a follow-up funnel to a list. And so that's kind of your way to interact with people like added to a list through follow-up funnels. So that might not even be there. And unfortunately, I don't even have a $97 plan that I can even test that on to tell you. And then we have the question, is email editor in the automation tab different on the 97 versus 297? No, as far as I know, the email editor is exactly the same on both plans. And so what you see in the automations tab for email editing emails like here is exactly the same what you'd see inside of the, when you do have Actionetics and you have the 297 plan, you're going to see the same thing when it comes to editing emails. And then have I ever gotten the email, have you ever gotten the email notification function to work? Yes, I absolutely have. It's been a while since I've actually used it, but it definitely has worked in the past for me. What you might find is it may have some delay because I'm not sure where that email gets queued to. We have multiple different queues that are inside of ClickFunnels, and they're, some of them sometimes get backed up. And then you also may see that they might possibly go to your spam bucket or go to a promotions tab or something like that. But I definitely have seen them function, and I do know people that are using them on a regular basis. So as far as I know, they're still completely functional. But they do come from, they don't come from your email, they'll come from a ClickFunnels notifications email address. And they are pretty basic emails. They're just like, hey, here's a contact that you just received, and it'll have the details of the contact record in the email so that you can, they're just meant to notify you that something happened and that you probably need to check on it. I honestly, and another thing that you could do in that case is if you're having troubles with the ClickFunnels notifications is actually use Zapier to do the same thing. You can actually have Zapier send you a text message when somebody purchases, or you could send an email through Zapier to notify you that somebody has purchased or somebody has opted into a registration form or something like that. So you can always also use Zapier to do those sorts of notifications as well. And that might actually be a bonus session that we do, is to go through and show you some of the things that I've done with Zapier and that we do with Zapier to kind of automate some of these processes. Okay, so let's jump back in this. Let me grab a quick drink of water here. So like I said, these are just a few of the examples of things that you can do with the automations tab where you might want to either take actions, add somebody to a list, send them an email. The other thing you can do is actually, another way to do something similar to this is actually on the products. So we're on an order form here, and we have products created on this order form. And so let's go ahead and go into our product here. And so where somebody is going to buy our product from us. And so what we can do here is if we go and edit this product, we'll see one of the options for the product itself is the fulfillment email. And so if we click on fulfillment email, it should eventually load for us. There we go. And then you can enable a fulfillment email. You can also turn this off entirely, so no email will get sent at all. But if you want to send an email, then you can actually say, hey, thanks for your purchase of Yoga Funnel Secrets. Okay, and then you can go in and put your email content here. Now, this email editor is definitely much different than what you see in the other emails. The product email editor has always been different, but it works well. It's kind of cool, but it's definitely much different than what you're used to seeing. You don't get all the widgets and being able to have buttons and things like this. This is a pretty much just a text-based email editor. So you're gonna put in your text, thanks for your purchase. Here's how to get access to your product. And then you're probably going to have a link in here. And so for example, you'll notice down below it says product thank you page will be swapped with your product's thank you page URL. So you can actually you can actually copy this right here. Notice the hashtags. So you can put that in right there, product thank you page. I'm actually going to delete that and paste it in a little differently. Okay, no, that's going to paste just like that. And then it's going to look at, okay, what page is listed as my thank you page or membership page, and that's what this link is going to get replaced with when you have this hashtag and the product thank you page. We call this a merge tag. You can also put merge tags in here. Other ones that you can put in, if you collect the first name, you can say, hey, first. That's another merge tag that you can use in emails. And that will get replaced with their first name. And there's a bunch of those different merge tags available. You can actually look inside the ClickFunnels help documentation and look at all the list of the merge tags that you can use. But you can use those inside your emails. And that's true whether it's you're editing here or whether you're editing in the normal email editor in a follow-up funnel or in the automations tab. You can use those merge tags. The other thing you can do is, in the case, say I want to have click here for access. I want that to be my text, but I want to replace that actually. I want that to be linked to my members area. So then you can actually create and click insert link, and the text is going to stay that, but then you can paste in my product thank you page, your little hashtag here, and put confirm, and now that's going to be a link, but it's going to actually link to your thank you page. So those are things you can do inside of the product setup that you can't do from your normal email editor. If you're looking at doing things in automations or in follow-up funnels, is you actually have this concept of the thank you page or membership page for a product, because each product can have a different thank you page. And so these are things you could do if you need to give somebody details on accessing a specific product. Maybe it's a download link and you have a thank you page actually set up that has just that one product download link on it. So that's where you might want to set things up to send out an email. And I'll do this often if I'm only selling one thing in my funnel and I want them to get just a single email. I'll do this a lot with courses where you sign up for a course and it doesn't matter how you sign up for it, whether it's, in this case, we have a one-time purchase or we have a payment plan. They purchase that product. I want to send them the same content. So, and so we'll just copy this content here. And so this email is going to get sent out anytime somebody buys this product. So we'll click save and next. And then the other thing we can do in this scenario is on a product, we can actually add them to a buyer's list, or we can do a ton of other things here if we want to set a follow-up action. Again, these are going to be available if you have Actionetics. If you have the 297 plan, you could select from all kinds of integrations. I can say, okay, I want to go to Actionetics, and there's a ton of things you can do from within Actionetics. You can send, you add them to a list, remove them from a list, all the things we saw in the automations tab. You can also send them an email. If you have a Twilio integration, you could add them to a list inside of MailChimp. You could add them to a webinar inside of Zoom. But a lot of times what I'll use these for is to, again, pick from our automations that we saw earlier, is we can unsubscribe somebody, which I've never had a case where I've actually wanted to do that. I don't know why I would want to unsubscribe them from a list when they buy something, but something you could do. But you might want to add a tag. You might want to remove a tag. You might want to email notify yourself or somebody else, or you might want to add them to the list or remove them from a list based on this purchase. So those are other things that you can do. And we could, again, send a text message with this one. So we could say send an SMS, and it'll let us, send a text message from here. We could go to Zoom, and we could add them to a webinar. So this would be a way if somebody purchases a product, I want to add them to a webinar that I have scheduled in the future. And that webinar could be, so in this, say in the case you're selling a paid webinar or a one-time training that's going to be delivered as a webinar, and somebody buys it, you can make sure that they only get added to that webinar when they actually buy the product. So this action is never going to it's never going to happen unless they actually have a successful purchase. And so this is the case where you would want to use a follow-up action in a product or a fulfillment email in a product versus just using an automation on a page. And because this is only going to happen one time when the product is actually purchased. So it's just a little different way to take an action. And again, they kind of, a lot of times you'll have specific purposes for using certain ones in certain scenarios. So in this case, yep, I only want to add them to this webinar when they purchase this product, then I can select that. Or I only want to add a specific tag. So this would be a way that you add the tag to say, a tag might be, hey, they bought this product, and maybe you want to be able to create a smart list later that says, show me all the people that have bought Yoga Funnel Secrets. I could add, YFS buyer as the tag. And so now I can go and create a smart list later that says, hey, show me all my contacts that have bought, that have the tag YFS buyer. So that's something that you might want to use. The downside of that is that if you use the edge, or it's not even a downside, it's just something to be aware of. If you do that and you want to say add tag, just be aware that if that person refunds that purchase, that tag does not automatically get removed. But if they bought the product, they'll have a purchase created. And if they refund that purchase, then the purchase gets removed. So you could also create a smart list, and we'll show this a little bit when we get into follow-up funnels. You can also create a smart list that says, show me all the people who have purchased product X. And then that will be relevant, or that will be related to whether they've refunded or not. If they've refunded, they'll no longer be on that smart list because they'll get that purchase actually removed, and those smart lists gets recalculated on a regular basis. But the tags don't automatically get removed. So this also applies to providing access in membership areas. That's something important to keep in mind there. We kind of went through when we, in the last session, we talked about membership areas. You can give somebody a product access where you can restrict content based on the product purchase, or you can restrict content based on tags. And sometimes tags are really friendly and easy to use, but they're best used for times when you're actually providing something to somebody for free or after they've taken a certain action. For example, in the One Funnel Away Challenge with ClickFunnels, we apply an OFA alumni tag once they've gone through the entire email sequence. So once they've been through and received all of the emails that are related to the One Funnel Away Challenge, they get added an OFA alumni tag. So now we can open a new section in the members area for that person. But if the content is really related to a product, and if somebody refunds that product, we want to remove that access. If we're using Stripe and we're using product restrictions in the membership area, then they'll automatically remove that product and they'll automatically lose their access in your membership area. But if you're using tags, that doesn't necessarily work because refunding that product does not actually remove this tag. So just something to be aware of. But you could also remove a tag. Say you added a tag when somebody came in and they didn't purchase, you could add a tag. And then if you want to remove that tag when they do purchase this product, then you could remove, just put in whatever that tag is. Again, it could be YFS failed. And you could remove that tag when they actually successfully purchase. So just a little bit different way to skin the same cat. So those are kind of our options there. And we can click cancel on this and it will stop. Yes, I'm sure. I'll probably actually take me back to my products list. Actually takes me back to my order form. So if we go back into products, again, I copied my email content for my core product here, and I probably want to set up that same email on the 3Pay. It might be different. Maybe I want to send them a slightly different email to let them know that, hey, you're going to receive, your next charge is going to be, 30 days from now or a month from now. But if I wanted to, I can just take my exact same content in here, and it didn't like the way I copied it. And I can go in and I can say, okay, I want to use the same merge tag on this link. So I want to go to this link and I want to insert my link again. And I want to put my merge tag on there and confirm. And now we've got this set up so that it's an email that gets sent out on both the one-time pay and the 3-pay. So we got it set on both products. So whether it doesn't matter which one they purchase, I'm going to send out an email on those purchases. This one's our 3-pay, so we might say, you know, your next payment will come out next month, something like that. Obviously, I would wordsmith that a lot, but just, you know, that's the concept is we may want to give some additional detail on the 3-pay plan to let them know how that works as opposed to the one-time payment. And once we have that, again, save and next, it's attached to our same members area, so we're good to go. We could add follow-up actions here if we wanted to. We don't have to. And so those are kind of a few of the core ways that we can add things. We can use the automations tab. We can use the product fulfillment email to send emails. We can also use the follow-up actions to set some of those things up. And then we're going to jump into here in just a second, follow-up funnels and email lists and how to manage with those. So Jeremy's got a quick question here. It says, do you know how the unsubscribe handles purchase email? If someone opts in with their email and then unsubscribes, but maybe a year later they click on an add and purchase, will they get any confirmation emails? That depends. Nowadays, they actually should get those confirmation emails. The way it used to work is if they unsubscribe, they would be globally unsubscribed, which means they're unsubscribed from any of your lists. And so they would not get emails from you. But now when you unsubscribe in ClickFunnels, unless they go in and say, I want to unsubscribe from everything, then they're only unsubscribing from the list that email was generated on initially. So if you're using follow-up funnels in email lists and whatever to send out those emails, then they're only unsubscribing from that list. They're not unsubscribing from you as a whole. So it's a little bit different today than what it used to be. But it is, we do still see some cases where somebody has unsubscribed and they're globally unsubscribed or they're unsubscribed from you in general. And yes, they will not get those emails because they've said they don't want to receive any emails from you. So it depends on how they unsubscribe, but that is definitely something to be aware of. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a real solid answer for that one with ClickFunnels directly. And honestly, I know that they're working on some of that too for being able to resubscribe somebody from a sequence when they take another action. You can resubscribe them if they had previously opted out, but they take another action, you can resubscribe them. But there's a little bit of obviously there's some legal dance that we have to go through. So the long answer or the short answer is it's not 100% clear. It depends on the situation of the customer and how they unsubscribe. Okay. So we have walked through and we've kind of looked at a few different options for how to, yeah, Jeremy says, thanks, absolutely no problem. So we have run through a couple of different ways to actually add emails and take actions. We have our automations tab for funnel steps. We have our fulfillment emails on products. We have follow-up actions on products. Let's actually look real quickly before we jump out of this section. Let's jump back and actually create a new funnel that is going to be an automated webinar, just to show you a couple of different scenarios with automated webinar funnels. And I'm just going to go into my classic funnel builder here, and we're going to host a webinar, and we're going to do a webinar replay, which I wish they called it something different because it's not. There we go, because that's what most people think of as an auto webinar versus a webinar replay. But let's just say YFS, keep putting YFA, auto webinar, and then we'll put this in the CF Code Lab tag, and we'll build funnel. Continue without a funnel name. I have a funnel name. I don't know what that's all about. And so now we have our auto webinar registration page. And we have our webinar countdown page. We have a webinar broadcast room page and webinar replay room page. So let's go in and take a look at our webinar broadcast room page. And let's go ahead and just apply a template to that one, so we can see what our automations tabs looks like. So let's go ahead and select this first one. And then once we build this page out, now let's look at our automations here, because we have a few different options available when we're using an auto webinar. We'll notice this one, we have an everyone, we have a missed webinar, we have an attended webinar, or attended but missed offer, we have a saw offer but didn't purchase, and then we have a purchased. So when somebody lands in this broadcast room, we have 5 different events that might happen that we can actually send them, take an action, or send them an email, send them a text message based on. So the missed webinar means that they didn't actually ever land in the broadcast room. So we might want to send them an email. So if they never saw this page, they missed the webinar. The other one is they attended, but they missed the offer. So when we look at our broadcast room page, we go, I believe it's in the publishing tab. Actually, it's not. It is in the overview for an auto webinar. And if we click the little gear icon, then what we'll see, it's not here. Is it on our registration page? Sorry, I forget where there's a setting where you put in the offer time into your page. And I just have to remember which page it's on where you set that. So let's pick a template. And let's see if it's on this page. It's not there. Well, let's set it here. Oh, you know what? I think it is actually, sorry, that I'm thinking of live webinars. On the settings, you can actually put in the date of the webinar, a date and time of the webinar. But in this case, it is actually, I believe it's in our settings when we edit the page. We can actually set an offer time. So if we pull up this page, it's being a little slow, and go to settings, and I believe it's under webinar settings. And now we have the show offer in seconds. So this is where we can set and say, okay, so the offer is going to come in at, say 137 seconds. Obviously, it would probably be a lot more than that. If we've got a 90-minute presentation, it's probably going to come in, much later than that. But just say 137 seconds is when we show the actual stack and we start to make the offer. So if this person has stayed beyond 137 seconds, then we are going to fire the event for, go back to the automations tab here, we're going to fire that event for they saw offer but didn't purchase if they haven't bought. So we'd want to use delays on these things. We might want to do a 1 day delay to give them time to actually go and purchase, or a 5-hour delay, or 4-hour delay, 3-hour delay, whatever. So we give them time to actually go and purchase before this event happens. Before we send them an email, we want to set an email delay on that. The other thing that will happen is that if they landed on this page, but they bailed out at 130 seconds and they didn't make it to 137, then we can fire actions to say, hey, I saw you started watching the webinar, but you didn't actually make it to the end. Was there a reason you bailed? Would you like to get the replay? Whatever. We can send them something specific to the fact that they never actually saw the offer. Or we may want to send them an email that actually goes through what the offer is, specific to them, so that they know what they missed out on. So that's a different event that we have available to us when it comes to automated webinar funnels. And then the purchase email is just like what we would see on an order form. If they actually purchased, I want to send a different email. And so we have these additional options here. The ones that are cool are the missed webinar. Like, they didn't ever land on this page. They didn't ever land on the broadcast room page, so they never saw the webinar. We might want to send them an email to remind them that they had registered for this webinar and they missed out, but hey, here's a replay that's available. Or they attended, but they missed,
The offer is like, hey, I saw that you jumped onto the webinar but weren't able to stay until the end. In case just so that you're aware, we made a really special offer. If you haven't already seen it, you'll probably want to go check out the replay. Or, hey, I noticed that you attended the webinar, but you didn't stay until the end, and and you would have missed out on the offer. So I want to make sure you know a little bit about what I can do to help you. Here's the offer itself, and break that down in the email, so then they might jump over to the order form. So these are a couple cool ones that are specific to auto webinar funnel types. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of those. And that kind of breaks down, again, the kind of specific to a funnel, specific to a page step, specific to a product ways that we can send email and we can take actions with our customers. And the next ways are we can go in and actually use Actionetics. So if we have Actionetics, then we've got email lists that we can create and interact with people. We've got broadcasts that we can interact with people. And we've got follow-up funnels that we can interact with people. I honestly have never used ClickBots. But those are ways that we can actually, so this would be the way that somebody could actually message us through a text message number. And when we get that and it has a certain keyword, then we can send back a message and say, oh, awesome, thanks for checking it out. Please enter your email address. And when they enter that email address, then we can get their actual confirmation, and we can send them a sequence based on that. So we're going to worry about the things that actually are super useful in here. I would personally, ClickBots, I've not used, and I would not use in ClickFunnels. I would use something like ManyChat for that, a tool that's very, very specific to that functionality. But broadcast and follow-up funnels and ClickFunnels are very cool, and you can do a lot of things that you would want to do, including sending text messages just straight through a follow-up funnel, or even as a broadcast now, which is super cool. And so let's jump into that. I'm going to close out some of this stuff so that we can kind of clean this up a little bit and get back to kind of where we started. Okay, great. So now, one of the key things that we'll want to be aware of, and we talked a little bit about email lists already, we've already created email lists, is within Actionetics, you've got email lists. And so these are, just consider them buckets. So we've got a couple of different ways that we have lists. We've got static lists, which are literally just buckets that we put people into. We put them into a list and we can take them out of a list. They're static. They don't change over time unless we add somebody in or we move somebody. There's not rules that are applied based on an action that somebody might take. When we add them to the list, it doesn't matter whether they buy a product, they're going to still be on that list. It doesn't matter if they refund a product, they're going to still be on that list. But smart lists are another way that we can generate a list of contacts. And so these that we just created, the buyers list and the failed purchases list, those are static lists. And you can kind of see here, it's just, it's got a little different icon. It's just, it looks like a list item here. If we click add new list again though, and we want to create a new, say we want to click create a list of buyers in a smart list sort of way versus a static list, we can do that by say YFS buyer, buyer smart list. And we'll put this one in CF Code Lab again. And now we just toggle this that says smart list. So when we do that and we click create list, it's going to come up with a page and says, great, you need to start building your smart list. And in order to do that, you have to add rules to this list. Otherwise, nothing happens. And this is basically smart lists start with all of your contacts. And then you add rules to filter down to the list of just the filtered list of people that you want. So we're going to click add your first rule. And then in this one, it's our YFA, and I keep putting YFA. I mean to put YFS. I don't know why I keep struggling with that. So we're going to say update list. So we have a rule group here. Oh, one or more rules. So it wouldn't save it because it has to be one or more rules. So we have all these options for our rule groups. And then what we can do is we can say, okay, so I want to say this is my buyer smart list. So I want to say product. And so I want to say rule agent is bought product, because I want to filter down to only people who have bought my Yoga Funnel Secrets product. and then I say select action is equal to, so they bought the product equal to, and then I pick my products here. So I have a ton of products in here because I have a ton of test funnels. So we can see we've got all kinds of them, but we should have our Yoga Funnel Secrets down towards the bottom. So we've got our Yoga Funnel Secrets live webinar funnel here with our order form in it. So I can pick that product, and then I can say, add another rule group. I want to add another rule. And so now I can say same thing, bought product equal to, and now I can scroll down and say Yoga Funnel Secrets 3Pay. So now this one says basically they bought this product or they bought this product. And then I update my list, and now it will go back, and now it will start to calculate the people that have gone through and done this. And so this takes some time. What happens is when they're doing this calculation, it actually goes into a queue, and it kind of sits behind the scenes and kind of filters through all of your lists. So depending on how many people you have on your list to begin with, this can take a little bit of time, or it can take a lot of time. Obviously, I have a sizable list. It's not huge by any stretch, but there's, it's going to take some time to crunch through that. ClickFunnels, same way. We have, a lot of people on Russell's email list, so it takes a while to crunch through these and do these calculations. But what you end up with at the end of the day is a list of all the email addresses that are currently on this smart list. And then that smart list recalculates every so often. And then also when you go to send emails to it, to this list, it will actually go through and recalculate who should be on it and send to just those people. So this is great in that scenario where somebody has refunded a product. So you only want to send it to people that are actively subscribed or actively have purchased a product, and not those that have refunded a product. So you might use a smart list in that scenario. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense there. So let's jump back in and look at email lists again. So we'll go here. So we can see that we've got all of our lists, and you'll notice that my YFS buyer smart list icon is now looks like a little, like a graduation cap. I forget what the proper term is for that. But that's what that kind of looks like. So that's meant to be, it's a smart list. It's got that university feel to it, right? It's a smart list versus a static list, just looks like a box of list items. So those are the kind of two ways that you can create lists. Is you have a static list of just people that have added manually to a list, or through an automated process, like they purchased a product and you add them to a list, or they landed on a funnel step and you add them to a list. Or and then smart lists are made up of rules that break down and only add people when they meet specific criteria. And those criteria are pretty big. So you can actually, let's create another ad list and just look at all the different options you might have. And we'll call this YFS test list. And we'll just add that one again to CF Code Lab. And we'll make this a smart list, and we'll click create new list. And so now we'll add our first rule. And so the other thing you can actually do here is add rule groups. And so you can say, and actually I think I might have messed this first one up. We'll go back and fix this in a minute. So I did this wrong. We need to do, for products, it needs to be the other way around. So let's just do this. So bought product equal to, and then what I need to do here is actually go in and do, in this case, we needed to do an or. So they bought this product. And so anything within this group is they have to meet, only include contacts who meet all of these requirements. So they bought this, and maybe the contact email is, let's see, something that they might have, that we might have here, does not have tag, or last engaged days ago. And we could say is equal to last engaged days ago is less than 90. So that's going to say, okay, I want to send an email to anybody that bought this product and was last engaged less than 90 days ago. Both, this is an and. So they bought the product and they were last engaged less than 90 days ago. But then I also want to say, well, but I also have another product that's related. It's the 3Pay. So I need to do the same thing for that product. They bought that product. And this would be our 3Pay product, our 3Pay. And then we can say, and the contact was last engaged less than 90 days ago. And so that's how we kind of work this. So bought product, Yoga Funnel Secrets, last engaged 90 days ago, or they bought the 3Pay and they were last engaged 90 days ago. Now that's a smart list that's going to show us the people that were engaged in the last 90 days that bought either one of these products. So that's another option here. And then let's look at some of the other rule groups that we have. We have a ton of things that we can do. We have our social interactions. We can say these are all the things that we can find from social. And this stuff is all gathered through what's called the full stack offering in ClickFunnels. So out of the box, ClickFunnels will try and collect a bunch of social following data around your contacts. If they put in an email address and that email address can be tracked back to a social media account, they'll check all of these different things. So you can see you have a ton of stuff here. So you could send an email to everybody that you know that has YouTube followers that is greater than 100. So if you're able to find it from your contacts, anybody that has YouTube followers and they have more than 100 YouTube followers, then this smart list will filter down to that. So that's pretty cool. And you can do the same thing. I believe Facebook is on here. So yeah, so we got Facebook followers is greater than 100. So there's some pretty cool things you can do with social. And you have different, a bunch of different things here. That's, all these things. So the other thing you could do, and you can always delete these rules. So we can click that here. We can go to contact. And then our contact, we have all these different fields that we can check on. So we can check for people that are in a general location or a deduced location, their age. We can, again, they may fill these things out, or we may try and find these things. Again, our full stack offering will try and deduce these things. So if it knows these things and you put a rule in there for it, then you can filter down by it. One is our action score. Action score is kind of cool. It takes a collection of how recent was somebody interacting with you, how often, what's their frequency, what's their lifetime value, how much money have they spent with you, and it totals those things up to an action score up to 100. And so you can say, hey, I want to send an email to all my best customers. And your best customers are going to be the ones that buy from you the most often, they're most frequent, they're most active, and they've spent the most money with you. So you can say, I want to send a special one-time promotion to all my best customers. Maybe I'm going to give them a bonus. I only want to send them where the action score is greater than, say, 50 or 75. So that's people that have really interacted with me on a regular basis. Then you could send them a special one-time bonus. Hey, this is only for my best customers, and that could be legit. So that's one way you might use something like an action score. But otherwise, you could check and say, hey, where email addresses. Maybe you want to filter out and say is email. You don't want to send an email to people that are on a smart list, and you want to say, I don't like people that use Gmail. So I don't want to send an email to anybody that contains gmail.com in their email address. This would be just another example of how you could use Smart List to say, show me a list of all my customers that use Gmail. And then when you go to send a broadcast, you could filter out by people that are on a Smart List. So that's the other thing you can do is you can go to lists and say, it's actually, it doesn't work for that because it's only on static list now because they have to do too many calculations. But that could be, you could actually export those people from your smart list and put them onto a static list if you wanted to. There's a lot of cool things you can do with this. You could actually put this rules into broadcasts as well. So we'll show you when you do broadcasts, these are just creating lists, but you also have this ability to create filter rules on broadcasts and follow-up funnel steps as well. So this is just kind of an overview of all the different things you could do. So let's get rid of these and look at a few of the other things. So we have funnels. We could say for people that have visited a certain step or never visited a certain step in a funnel. So these are things, would be things like you would look at when you're filtering down if you were doing Facebook ads or something like that. They're almost those custom conversions. It'd be something similar where you can say, hey, show me, I want to create a list of people that have been to a certain step in a certain funnel. So I could say, you know, again, lots of test funnels. So I got lots of pages. Scroll, 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 scroll. And I should have my YFS auto webinar. And these are not, I don't think these are actually, yeah, these are not alphabetically ordered. So it makes it kind of a pain to find when you have a ton, but let's just say our auto webinar page is, since it's one of the latest ones we created. Oh, no, here we go. They are. Yeah, I think they actually are alphabetically ordered. So we've got our Yoga Funnel Secrets Live. So I want to say, hey, I want to send an email. I want a list of people that have landed on my webinar confirmation page. So that should mean people that have registered for my webinar. That's one way you could do that. You know, and then, so you got funnels, visited step, never visited step. So you could also say, hey, show me people that have, I want a list of people that have never visited my, that have never visited, here's an example. Okay, so known contacts that have visited my webinar, could be confirmation page. And then I want to add another one for people that I want to filter down to those people that have registered for my webinar, but didn't actually ever go to the order form. No, it's not letting me add another. I'm going to delete some of these and see why it's not letting me add another. I think it's because I need to add. Okay, why is this not letting me? Okay, it's being a little finicky. So I'm going to refresh this page. Okay, let's do this again. So if we go through, okay, there we go. So I want to see people that have visited my webinar confirmation page. And there are other ways. Again, this is one of those scenarios where there are 100 ways to skin this cat. We could say they visited my webinar confirmation page. That means they probably registered. And then, but they've also never visited step equal to, and now I want to say they never made it to the actual order form. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. One of those good problems to have, right? You build lots of funnels and you have lots of pages to pick through, but they never made it to the order form page. And so this would be a list of people that I could send an email to say, hey, you registered, but you never saw the order form. You never went and checked out the order form, and send them a specific email, or you could at least see the list of people. So a couple of cool things that you could do there. And so let's get rid of this rule group. We're going to add a new rule group here, and we're going to look at some other things. So we've got products again, products. We can say bought, never bought. We've got broadcasts. We can say, and let's get rid of this one. We've got open broadcasts. So these are things that in relation to emails. So you send a broadcast email. You can say, hey, I want to send another follow-up email to somebody that opened this broadcast, and we can go through and pick, and it will show you all of your email campaigns. So, or in your, we have email campaigns, we have email broadcasts. So I could say, you know, that they opened the broadcast named 3 new add-ons, and then never clicked, and go with that same broadcast. So this is going to be a list of people that opened it but never clicked. I want to send them another email with a different subject, with a different body, to get them to hopefully click through. So these are, again, some super cool ways that you can create smart lists so that you can follow up with these people. And then you can actually attach them to follow-up sequences if you wanted to. You can also use these same setup of rules when you're actually creating follow-up funnels. And also broadcast messages. So just want to kind of show through some of these.
So we've got this going. Let's go back and add rule groups. And so that's broadcast. Those are kind of our options we have there. So we've got all these options available for broadcasts. Let's add now, if we look at lists, these are interacting specifically with static lists. So people that are on a static list and equal to, and then this is a list of all my static lists that I have created. So I can say, people that are on my YFS buyers list, or they're not on my YFS buyers list. So those are kind of lists. They're dealing with static lists. And then we also have email steps. You can say, okay, open email step, and this is going to be related to follow-up funnels. So open email step and is equal to, and then it's going to show me my, these are all the follow-up funnels that I have. And again, I've got a ton of these test ones in here. So this is a registration sequence we created for a follow-up funnel. So we've got the open the email, the welcome email for my YFS registration sequence. And then we can, again, add another one and say email step, never clicked email step, welcome email. So again, we could say, hey, I want to send another email. I want to do something to people that have opened the welcome email, but never actually clicked the welcome email. That might be the people that have actually bought your product, but never actually clicked to create their account. You might want to send them a separate email to say, hey, don't forget to go create your account. So these are just some of the rules that you can use within smart lists, and also just in general use when you're creating broadcasts, as well as follow-up funnels, follow-up funnel steps to take actions and filter people out so that they don't, so they either, in the case of smart lists, it's include the people that meet these rules. And then also with broadcast, you would probably want to filter them out, say, don't send it to these people, or only send it to the people that meet these criteria. Richard asks, can it calculate the total amount purchased by customer, number of purchase and days since last purchase, and use that data for smart lists? I don't believe so. That combination of data is very, very, very specific, and I don't think it's going to get down to that level of detail. I think what you'd look at there is probably your contact, and you can look at, I believe, lifetime value is one of these. Maybe not. I think it used to be, but I'm not sure if it is anymore. I think action score might be the closest thing to that. Yeah, I don't see lifetime value in there anymore. And product is really just product. It's not, so you're going to have a hard time doing there's no calculations and things like that included. And it doesn't like me again for some reason. Let me add new rules here. And so let's go in and take a quick look. So contact we've kind of looked at. Let's see, I don't think there's anything in social that will get down to that as far as lifetime value. Let's see if it's in there. Sorry, super scrolled past that one. Yeah, no. So that's not there. So let's get rid of that, get rid of that. And I don't think there's any other way to get to that kind of lifetime value that you're looking for there. And it's not going to tell you anything about amounts purchased at all. Those don't get stored. Your products purchased would be your only other way. Yeah, so that's something very, very, very specific that you need to use an external tool for. So hopefully that helps a little bit there. Okay, so we've got this list here, and honestly, we don't need it. It was just kind of our test list. So let's just bounce back to our list, and it should let us, hopefully, we're going to go ahead and delete that list. Let's see if we're our good old delete. Yeah, so I'm not even sure we can delete this one without having rule groups. So we'll leave that as for now, but those are kind of just an overview of the rule groups and how they work. And they work very, very similar for creating smart lists as well as broadcast and follow-up funnels. So let me take a quick drink here and we'll jump into broadcast, and then we'll jump into follow-up funnels. Okay, so we have the next one we'd want to look at is broadcast. And so if we go to our broadcast list, it'll show you a list of all your previous broadcasts. And you can actually look at, we have here, we have an overview, we have queued broadcasts, the ones that are actually working on being sent out. We don't have any queued ones right now. And if you have one in draft that you started but didn't finish, it'll show there in drafts But generally, your overview is going to be ones that have been sent. And up at the top, if you have any that are currently sending, it will show those up as well at the top, and it will give you the statistics for those. And so we can create a new broadcast. And a broadcast is a one-time. It's not going to be something that's automated. It's not going to happen when somebody signs up to a list. It's going to happen. I have a list of people that I have right now that I want to send this one message to, and you're going to send it out. The places where I would use broadcast messages are for doing daily emails. If you're sending out your daily Seinfeld emails, do this as broadcasts. You could set them up as sequences, or you could set them up as broadcasts and then schedule them. But I only add things to a sequences that I know that I want everyone to receive, regardless of when they came into the process. A lot of times your Seinfelds are going to be what's going on with your life currently. So you're not going to put those into a sequence. You're going to send them out as they happen. And then also for things like live webinars, where the webinar is a specific date and time, and you may want to send out, hey, reminder emails 2, 3, 4 days in advance, but you're not going to send those out as emails that are attached to a sequence, so that, when somebody registers, they get an email, because those registrations are the emails that are tied to sequences are based on a delay of when somebody was added to a list, or based on a delay of when somebody took an action. So with live things, they're a specific point in time. So if somebody registers the day before the email, they don't need to get the 3 or 4 day reminder email that happens before that. So you'll send those emails for live webinars as broadcast messages. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and we can do, most often you're going to send broadcasts for emails. I want to send an email message. You could also send out a text message. You could actually send out do an action that is action for that as well. But I don't generally use that. I'm going to send out a broadcast generally as an email. So I'm going to call this test broadcast 1. It's a little unusual the way this is set up, because you're giving a broadcast name, but most often it's a little confusing, because you'd think, well, that would be my subject line if I'm doing an email, but it's really set up that it doesn't have to be an email. So we got to give the broadcast a name. But if we pick email, then we're also going to give it a subject line, which a lot of times will be the same. So we've got the broadcast name, then we're going to give it a group tag. We're going to call it CF Code Lab. We're going to put that in there. And because this is an email, who's it going to come from? Well, this is our support at Yoga Funnels HQ. And it's going to come from me. And who's going to receive this broadcast? So this would be my, say I want to send this out, and I want to send this out to all my buyers. So I can go down, I can pick my YFS buyers. Then here we've got our rule groups, add filter rules. This is going to filter out people that we don't want to send this message to. So we're going to say, okay, last engaged is less than 30 days ago. So this is people that are going to be included. Okay. So this is only include contacts. So I probably worded that incorrectly. We're not filtering out people that we don't want to receive the message, although we are. We're saying who do we want to include in this list. So we want to only include those people that were last engaged less than 31 days ago. That's the default rule from ClickFunnels. You can remove this. If you want to send this to all buyers, you just delete that rule group. You don't have to have any rule groups in order to send a broadcast. That one comes out of the box. Again, to help with their deliverability, that's based on some industry best practices of, hey, really only send stuff the most often to people that have been engaged in the last 30 days or last 31 days in this case. A lot of times with ClickFunnels messages, we send out to people that were only engaged in the last 90 days. And so we send those out, and again, it helps with your deliverability to the inbox. Again, email service providers look at those people that have received all those messages, especially these broadcasts you're sending out to a large group of people. They look and say, hey, how many of our people that are use our service actually received this email, actually opened it, actually clicked it, actually replied to it. And so the better job you do at only sending messages to those people that are going to engage, the more likely your emails will be to land in their inbox. So that's why that rule group's there. But we could also go through and add all the things that we had rule groups before. We could say, hey, I want to send a message to people that
where their email contains gmail.com. So I only want to send this email to people where their email has gmail.com in it. So that could be a way to, if I want to create a specific message that I know that the subject line for this or this email address or whatever is going to make it to the inbox more in Gmail, then you could send a broadcast that only goes to those people. Again, we could, that's probably not a great recommendation of one, but you could say, I want to send this only to people that have bought a certain product or that have, were last active within. Again, the contact has that last active, last engaged days ago. And we could say, okay, I want to send a list to all my YFS buyers that haven't engaged with me is greater than 90 days ago. So this would be something that you might want to use for, say, a reactivation email to say, hey, you haven't interacted with me in the last 90 days or more. And so I'm saying, hey, now, if you want to stay on my list, you need to click the link here and go check out my page. I've got a special bonus for you. And that will get people to re-engage. It's great for their email service provider to give them a signal that, hey, this person actually wants to receive the content from you. And so that's a great way to re-engage. So you could send this to people that those people that haven't been engaged with you in the last 90 days. Maybe you want to give them a special bonus to reactivate them. That's one option you could do with Filter Rules here for a broadcast. And you can also, again, send a broadcast. Maybe you sent a broadcast yesterday and you want to say, hey, I want to send a broadcast again, but only to those people that did not open my broadcast from yesterday. So, hey, I want to send, I sent my broadcast, 3 new add-ons. I sent it yesterday. And I want to send another one today, but I don't need to send it to the people that opened it yesterday because they already saw it. I just want to send it to those people that didn't open it yesterday. So we can send it to this. So this is going to only include those people who meet these requirements. So that's just some examples of using rules and rule groups for using for broadcast messages. And then so we can say that we're going to go ahead and just delete this because we don't want to necessarily need any rule groups for this. We want to go, because it's only going to send to my YFS buyers list, right? So I'm saying my starting list is YFS buyers. You can actually add multiple lists here as well. That's something to be aware of. So you could send it people that are on my test list. That was, there's nobody on that one. It's a smart list. But I could say I want to send it to all my webinar registrants as well. So I want to send it to my buyers and my registrants. So you can send to multiple lists if you want to. And then we'll click next. And then now we'll go in and now we're actually setting up the content of the email. So now we give it a subject line. So this could be, again, YFS test email. It's just a subject line. Obviously, that's not a great subject line. You would want to do it different. And then you have templates to pick from. In this case, we've got system templates. These are all the ones provided by ClickFunnels out of the box. And then we've got our user templates. So these are templates that you've saved as a template that you want to use in the future. So I've got my left align, my CF Pro Tools left align template that I use most often. You can preview it or you can select that template. And then when you do that, it's going to reload the page and now you're in your email editor. And you'll notice now, you might have been wondering, well, how do I get those templates? You can actually click Save Email as Template to save it as a user template. So what you would want to do there is, okay, so if I wanted to start and I want to create a template that is different than my left align template, I would go in and I'd edit this email and say maybe I don't want this image there. So I can delete the image and then I can save this and I can close it. And then I can say save email as template. And it will say your email template was successfully saved as email template 6. And then you could open the template. So if I open that up, now it'll take me into that email template so I can edit it. So it's telling me editing email design. And now it's going to load my preview there and I can do edit and it will pull it up. And now you can see this template here. So you can edit that template content too later. So I could have just come in and edited my user template, but I want to kind of show you how you create an email template to begin with.
But now you would go through and you would actually edit your email content, type up whatever you want to say. I would recommend going and creating something like this with a footer in it, with your terms and conditions and all that, but links to your stuff. If you have multiple products and you want people to sign up for, or you have affiliate products, in this case, almost all of this is affiliate product stuff. So it's .com secrets, extra secrets, all this stuff is affiliate for ClickFunnels. Obviously, the Pro Tools audience is mostly ClickFunnels customers. And so there's a great reason to click and have affiliate links in there. You might be in a different audience niche, obviously, but you might have affiliate products. You might have multiples of your own products, so you can link those in there in your template. That way you don't have to redo that every time. But then you just come in here and edit like normal. So notice the editor here is very similar to what we saw earlier. It's just open in a slightly different way, but it's basically the same. So you've got your content, you've got settings here. The way that we do the get things to be left aligned, you might notice is here we're left aligned with this template, but we can do center align by saying body alignment center. And now you'll notice we have that kind of marketing style message where everything's centered in there. The problem is when you then open that up in a full screen email client, you're going to get big margins on the left and right with white space, and people are like, oh yeah, this is a template email, this is a marketing email, I don't want to read this. So I like to do this with the left alignment, and so it's real easy to change that in any of your emails in your templates. I just save my template left aligned like that so that you can do that. I would recommend that everybody do that. It just looks like a little more friendly, casual email from maybe a friend. So that's one thing you do. Just add your content. The other thing that a lot of people miss out on is the pre-header. This can be really cool. So the pre-header by default is what's going to show when somebody reads, especially if you're using like Gmail, but it works on basically all email clients, is that message. The first thing they see is you'll see who it came from, they'll see the subject line, and they'll see like the first sentence or two in their email client that gives them an idea, hey, do I want to read this or not? So what happens if you don't put a pre-header in is that they'll just grab the first actual sentence or two. And a lot of times you want that to be a good hook anyways to get somebody to read. So you may not need it, but the other thing you can do is actually make your pre-header be something different. And it could be a super cool hook that comes later in the email, but you want them to see that and be like, that's that point of high drama that is going to get them to actually open the email and read it. But maybe your email doesn't start out with that. So maybe your pre-header text that they see in there is different than that first sentence of your email. And so you can fill this out independently. And so that makes it it gives you a little bit of a different way to actually hook somebody and actually open the email. So something to be aware of that's there, and then you just click done editing pre-header, and you notice it doesn't actually add it here, but it will add it so that that's the first thing that's visible when they see it here. So like you'll see who's it from, what's the subject line, and then what's that first piece. And then you can do a preview if you want to, and then once you're done, you just hit save, and that's going to save that email. And then when we click next, it's going to take us into the next step. Pre-header there, you'll notice, let's actually bounce back to that real quick. The other way to set that pre-header is right here. So this is another place to set that same thing that we had show up above. So we have this pre-header here. Notice it didn't actually save it here. So in fact, I don't even know if that's a bug because I did save it. It should have saved it there. That might be a little bit of a bug. So you probably want to put that pre-header here. So this would be super cool message to get them to open the email. And so now when we click next, so that is what will show up as the pre-header when they open it and see it in their email client. And then with broadcast, you have a couple things that you can do. You can actually send them right away. And you have to, by default, that's the way I generally do broadcasts. I type them just before, but a lot of times you'll want to maybe type them up the night before, or a couple days before, and then schedule them to go out at a certain time. But you can also, if you want it to go out immediately, you can click the send now. Just be aware, it can be a little freaky the first time you do it because you're like, man, if I click send now, is it actually going to send it? Maybe I'm not ready yet. All it does is set it to be sent now. When you click next, it's not going to actually send it. It's going to actually take you to a summary page that will tell you what's going to happen. And then you still have to click send now.
but maybe we don't want to send it right now. We will actually want to send it in the future. So I want to untoggle this, and then it's going to let you pick a date. Well, when do I want to send this? Maybe I want to send this one tomorrow. And maybe when do I want to send it? Do I want to send it at, maybe I want to send it 8 a.m. And I want to send it at 8 a.m. Boise time tomorrow. So that would be 10 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. And it's going to show you, this is actually kind of the little legend here is going to show you what the current date is. Well, it's currently in orange, so it's currently the 7th. And it's going to show you when you have draft broadcasts, when you have scheduled broadcasts. Our broadcast already went out. So I sent an email on Friday. And then the date selected for this broadcast. So it kind of gives you a little calendar of when you might have things scheduled, so you can actually schedule it at a convenient time. So that's kind of what's going on here and what you can pay attention to. If you're scheduling out broadcasts, it's going to help you give you a calendar of when do I need to add this one to my queue. And so we're going to say, we want to send this one out on September 8th at 8 a.m. Boise time. And so let's go ahead and click next. And, I didn't like something. You cannot send them earlier than the current time. Please select the date time in the future. Not quite sure why that didn't like that. Try this one more time. Maybe I selected the wrong date. Click next. It keeps, let's put this on the 9th and see. Let's set this at 11 a.m. This might be a little bug. Yeah, it actually, that's a little bug. Well, heck, I hadn't tested that before. So it's not letting us schedule for some reason. It's not letting us schedule. It's either not taking the date or it's not liking that I've got it scheduled to go at a time that is later than currently. So that's a little weird. But anyways, let's just make this 11:50 today, so we can get past this step and move on. So now, what is the deal? I wonder if this is messed up because I had previously set it to send now. So we'll go send now again. So you kind of get the idea of how you would schedule something. And so that's a lot of times what you're going to want to do. I think I might be messing the system up here because I had previously set it to send now, and now I'm trying to schedule it. And so I think that might be throwing a little bit of a bug in. So we'll have to get that reported up. But anyways, you'll land on this summary page, and on this, it'll actually show you the number of people it's going to send to. Now, sometimes if you've got a smart list that's still calculating, this will just show as zeros because it doesn't know who all it's going to send to yet. But generally what you'll see if you've started with a static list and you've got some rules, some filter rules, it'll filter down. It'll show you how many people that were coming in from the lists, and then how many of them got filtered out, and then how many it's actually going to send to. And then you can click send now. And so it'll actually send the email. The other thing that you'll often want to do before you do that is you can actually send a test email. So you can send this email as a test to whatever email address. So you can put in your own email address here. That's attached to my account. So it starts with that as the default, but if I want to send this to my CF Pro Tools account, I can do that and just click send test email, and it will send you a test so that you can then go and review the email, click the links, make sure they work, do all that fun stuff. And then when you're ready, click the send now button, and then it'll actually send that email. So that is broadcast messages in a nutshell. Again, we went a ton through rule groups, and then we got broadcasts, and next we're going to go into follow-up funnels. But real quick, any questions while I take a drink of water, any questions on broadcast messages? Excuse me. Okay, so I haven't seen any questions pop up, so let's go ahead and jump in. So broadcasts hopefully make a ton of sense. They're super easy. I'm not going to worry about sending this one. I'm just going to click exit to overview because I don't actually want to send this email.
But once you do send it, you can always come back and look at the stats for the email. Now, obviously it says sent 0% because it hasn't actually sent anything. But you can come back and look at these emails later, your broadcasts that were sent out, and see who opened them. So if I go into my broadcast now, I sent a broadcast out yesterday about a new session coming up, and who I sent it to. It sent it to the entire list. Again, this was to promote CF Code Lab. And so we can see that this is going to grow a little bit over time. It's running up, running up, running up, running up, running up, running up. So it was sent to 100% of the people it should have been sent to. Pretty darn close to it. It looks like it failed a couple times. And then 19% of people opened that, and then 1% clicked. Now, the one thing to bear in mind with this is that this number might be a little different than what you might calculate for your own click-through rate, because this clicked percentage is actually 1% clicked of this 100% sent. So 127 people out of the 10,000 clicked on the message, which is roughly 1%. But what actually happened here is that what a lot of people look at is, okay, how many people clicked out of the people that actually opened? Because I can't click the email if I didn't open the email. And so 127 out of 1,900 is a lot different than 127 out of 10,000. So just something to be aware of here, that click percentage here, that 1% click-through rate is actually 1% of the total sent, not 1% of the opens. So just something to be aware of. A lot of email marketers will calculate their clicked percent as the percent of people that opened it that actually clicked it, which I think makes a little more sense. But if you're looking for overall numbers, like how many people clicked on my email that I sent, then that 1% is kind of spot on. It is looking at the total of sent, not the total of opened. And then if you make money off that, then you can see those dollars come in here. So that's pretty cool for broadcast. And I think that about covers it for broadcast. You can see a lot of those same things happen with follow-up funnels as well. So let's jump into follow-up funnels. And we created one already with our YFS registration sequence. And so let's go ahead and jump in here. We have one step. We have our welcome email. And this is just an email that goes out right away when somebody registers, okay? And honestly, I probably wouldn't do this as a follow-up sequence normally. I would normally do this as in the automations tab. But one thing, like I mentioned, that is good for this, and so this might be, maybe this changes my mind as I talk through it. One reason for doing it as a follow-up sequence is people are only going to receive this message one time. They only go through your follow-up sequence once. And so if this is a live webinar and you only want them to get and you're sending out a welcome, this is just your welcome message for registering for your live webinar. You only want them to receive that once. They registered once. You don't want them to receive that every time they go through and register. Then you could do it as a follow-up funnel. What you don't want to probably do is set this up as a follow-up sequence for an automated webinar. Because your goal with an automated webinar, right, is maybe people go through and register multiple times. So you want them to receive the registration confirmation every time they register. So that's when you might want to actually have those set up in your automations tab on your pages versus as a follow-up sequence. So, but what we can see here is we've got the basics of a follow-up sequence here, and a follow-up sequence is actually attached to a list, right? So this is going to be attached to our YFS webinar registrants list. And so it's only going to send to people that get added to that list. And then we have a sequence of steps that are going to get followed when somebody gets added to that list. And so we have a step, which is our welcome email. We have how many people were sent. We're going to see our stats for sent, clicks, active, which means how many people are in this step right now that haven't moved to the next step. What's our click-through rate and how many sales have come from that? And then whether it's live or not. We can actually set something as not live. You're about to pause this step. So this step won't actually happen anymore. And then if you set it live, it will happen for people that go through this from that point forward. And then you can add new steps. So, and the other thing is the delay, is how many hours or days is this step delayed from. So if we edit the settings for this step, we had set it initially to be sent immediately. And so we could, again, add rule groups here. If we want to say, hey, only people that meet certain criteria are going to receive this,
We could add a rule group, and we've kind of been through those. I don't want to hammer that dead horse too much. So we've got that. We can go through our message. So we've got our email that's going to actually be sent. Thanks so much for registering, blah, blah, blah. We can go through and go to our next step, which is our schedule. So when do I want to trigger this action? So this one is set at a 0-hour delay. So that means as soon as somebody is added to that list, they're going to get this email. And so we could say, but hey, you know what? I want to send a step. We'll add another step here, and we can delay it by a day. Or we could delay it by 4 hours or 8 hours. What you won't be able to do here is actually put in fractions. So you won't be able to say by 0.5 hours. That's a little bit different than what we looked at with webinar confirmation emails and reminder emails earlier from the automations tab. So that's one of the bigger benefits of using automations versus a follow-up funnel as well. And so the other thing that we can do that we didn't go through in broadcast, because you're really scheduling those broadcasts to go out at a time or to go out at a specific date, and that actually didn't let me do it. But you can actually set a send window for these sequences to say, hey, I only want to send it at a certain time. So we can say send window, and I only want to send this email between, so like maybe 6 a.m. at the earliest and like 6 p.m. at the latest. So if somebody comes and opts in, now I would not do these. I would not, an example of where I would not use a send window is for a welcome email. Somebody literally just registered. So that means they're on their computer, and that means they're probably going to be wanting to get that email right off the bat. So don't set a send window on something like that. But if you, a day later, you want to send them a message that just says, hey, here's the first cool thing you're going to learn in my webinar when you attend in a few days, then you want to actually set a send window to say, hey, only send this email between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. because that's when they're most likely to actually open and read your email. And so so we're going to try, it's going to try and send these out in the subscriber's time zone if they can figure that out. So if ClickFunnels knows when they subscribe, what time zone they were in, which they try and calculate whenever somebody opts in, if they calculated that, then they're going to send it in their time zone. So it's 6 a.m., 6 p.m. in that person's time zone. And so if somebody comes in and registers right away, you send them one immediately, and then you've got another step that you're going to send only between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And that person's outside of that window, it's going to wait until the next time they're in the window to actually send that next email. So send windows are really cool, and it was actually something that got added relatively recently. It's probably been it's probably been a year by now. But maybe in the last 6 to 9 months, seems like about the time we added send windows to that option, maybe within the last year or so. But it didn't exist before, so it's really a cool option to have. A lot of other tools have it, like ActiveCampaign is great for using that. MailChimp, I believe, also has send windows. That's the first place I believe I saw it, and we added specifically to ClickFunnels because of that. Because hey, we want to get the best chance possible of somebody actually seeing my email. And so if I send it to them at midnight, if they registered at 11 p.m. and I send them another email at 11 p.m. a week from now, they probably aren't going to open they're probably not in their inbox at 11 p.m., but they probably are going to be first thing in the morning. And if you send the email at 11 p.m., they've already gone to bed. And between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. when they check their email for the first time, they get 100 other emails. Your email's at the bottom of that list. They may not ever get to it. They may not ever see it. So it's less likely to get read. But if you send it don't send it until, instead of 11 p.m., you send it at 6 a.m. the next morning, then you're going to be higher up in that list and get more likely to be read. So that's where send windows come in. You can also remove a send window by clicking remove, and it will just send it whenever they reach this delay. And if there's 0 delay, they'll get it immediately. And so that's kind of the option here. Now let's go in and say we want to actually add a new step. This is where those new steps can be lots of different things. Just like we saw with broadcast, they can be a particular type. So the first one was welcome email. Say we want to send a welcome text message. We can go in and say, hey, we want to send a text message. And, and so we want to send from, and I've got a Twilio account set up there. And again, we've got rule groups we could add if we wanted to. And we're going to send next. And we want to send an SMS. And oh, having trouble typing. There we go. So awesome to have you on board for Yoga Funnel Secrets. So that's the message we want to send. Just say, hey, great to have you on board. And so that's going to go out by SMS, and we can send next. And again, bear in mind, it's only going to send if you actually collected a phone number to be able to send it by. And then when do we want to trigger this to happen? Well, we sent the email right off the bat, zero delay there. And we probably want to send a text message zero delay as well, because they just registered. But you could send a send window and say, hey, I only want to send a text message if it's between certain hours. So maybe that one I've been a little more conscious. I want to say I only send it between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So that's the only time I want to send that. So if we're outside of that send window, please select which days. And you also have to select, which days you want to send that on. This is another great one. I don't want to send a text message on Saturday or Sunday to my customers. I only want to send it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So only send this text message, even if they just registered. I don't want to send the text message unless it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so that's the send window total. So you'll need to add the days as well as the times. And so now we've got that step set up. And then we can click Make Live, or we can click Save as Draft. And so we're going to save it as draft. And now when we go and look, we notice that that step is there in our list, but it's not live. So when we're ready to send it live, so it's not actually going to send. Nothing's going to happen right now. If somebody comes through, that step's there. Yeah, we might want to turn that on in the future, but it's not on right now. When we're ready, we just click the toggle and it turns it live. It lets you know, hey, you're about to go live. Are you ready to get your content out there? Blah, click confirm. And now it's live. So this is our welcome email, welcome text message. So there's no delay on the text message unless they're outside of the send window. So if they register on a Saturday, we're not going to send that message until 8 a.m. Monday morning. And that's when that will go out. So it'll go out as soon as it can within that window. And you'll actually notice that send window listed right here, 8 a.m. Through 8 p.m., Monday through Friday. Now let's add another step. And in this step, maybe we want to do something else. Maybe we want to, we've seen how to do emails. We've seen how to do text. There's a ton of different things you can actually do. So we kind of got everything set up here. We can send a Facebook message. We won't run through that because I would recommend using a mini chat tool to actually do all of that stuff. It's more specialized to that. There's a lot more options there. Desktop Messenger is another one that I don't use because it is more like your little pop-ups that you see for your browser. If you'd enabled notifications, you can do a little notification. Now that's cool. I'm kind of annoyed by those as a customer. I don't like those. I generally don't allow those at all. So I don't even think we want to run through that. Retargeting Messenger. I'm not even sure how this even works. So we won't even run through it. The ones that you're most often going to use are email messengers, text messengers, and the Actionetics. So let's run through and do an Actionetics one. We have to give it a name. So testing Actionetics step. And so let's click Actionetics and we'll kind of run through this one. And so now we're going to say, okay, well, do we have anybody that we need to filter out? No, we don't need to add a rule group. We don't need to go through that. So we're going to go ahead and go through and go to the next step. And then it's going to let us pick, well, what do you actually want to do? And so I'm not the only one who doesn't know what all these features are. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, no, I don't either, for sure. Yeah, even on the marketing team, we often don't know all the features. That might be the coolest thing since sliced bread, but as marketers generally do the things that are super simple and that you understand and you can be super effective with. A lot of times the latest and greatest tactics are a flash in the pan. So stick with what you know, stick with what you're comfortable with, stick with what's effective for you, and go from there. So cool. So A lot of times what we'll do, or what you might want to do, is if you've got a specific sequence, say for example, I mentioned the example of One Funnel Away Challenge. So that is a 35-day sequence of emails that goes out to people when they sign up for the One Funnel Away Challenge. Actually, when it starts, so people get added to an email list. We start firing those emails on a certain day when the One Funnel Away Challenge starts, and they get 35 of them in a row. And what we want to have happen is at the end of that sequence, is that we want them to be added to another list, and then removed from this list. So because now they're finished with the One Funnel Away sequence, we want to remove them from a list that ties them to that sequence. We want to add them to another list. So we're going to add them to, we'll pick a list. But for example, we want to add, for One Funnel Away, we add people to an alumni list. So if you were sending people through a challenge or sending people through your course, and you've now given them all the emails that deliver the content, and you want to add them to an alumni list, you would just do add to list and then add them to that list and click next. And then you're going to want this to be a delay, right? So say we have a 15 days worth of content. We want this to happen 15 days after they've gone through everything. So 15 days later, I want to add them to a different list. We don't have to worry about the send window because we're just adding to the list. Doesn't matter if it happens in the middle of the night. They're not going to ever see it unless you've got other follow-up sequences attached to that list. But then you should use the send windows on those follow-up lists, not on this one. So we're going to click review for sending. And now we've got a 15-day sequence. We're going to 15-day delay. We're going to add them to another list. We're going to go ahead and make this live. And then another one could be that we want to have another step that does the opposite, which it removes them from this list after a period of time. So they don't, so they're no longer on this list. And this is how you kind of can manage your list to see, okay, who's in a sequence and who's just on my general Seinfeld list. So that might be a better one, is that this list adds them to, they came in, they bought a product, and when they bought the product, I removed them from my daily Seinfeld list, so they're only getting emails about my product. And then when they've consumed all of my product, they've received all the emails about my product, I'm going to add them back to my Seinfeld list, and I'm going to remove them from my buyers list. So I'm going to go remove from buyers list and go into Actionetics. And I don't need to filter anybody. And I'm going to do remove from list. And then I can pick my YFS buyers list, and I'm going to remove them from the list. And that's the list that actually is powering this follow-up funnel. So they're not receiving anything more from this follow-up funnel. It's the last step, but that's another way that you could remove somebody from this list. If they say they're on another follow-up funnel where they did something else and you want to remove them from this list, then they'll no longer receive any steps in the funnels that are attached to that list. And so, so this, again, we're going to do on a 15-day delay. And review for sending, and then we'll make it live. And I thought I punched the button, but evidently I did not. And so now we've got our basic sequence. But most of the things that you're going to have in your follow-up sequences are going to be emails. You're going to send out email messages, probably one every day. One of the things that you'll want to keep in mind that I'm not a huge fan of, I wish was done a little bit differently, and hopefully it will be in the future, is the way the delays are set. So generally you're going to say, hey, I want to send somebody an email every day. When they sign up to my list, and I first get indoctrinated. So, for CF Pro Tools, I want to send, when somebody signs up for CF Pro Tools, I want to send them one email every day for the first 14 days. And that's going to get them indoctrinated into the product, show them how to use it, show them how to reach out to support, show them how to give me the details I need to be able to support them in the best way. Instead of just saying, hey, this isn't working, can you help? It's like, hey, actually send me a link to your page and send me the details so I know what your problem is. I need to be able to troubleshoot it. And if I don't know where your page is at, I can't troubleshoot it. So it gives you a chance to set up those emails that are going to go out on an automated basis. They're going to get when they first sign up for your product, and help kind of indoctrinate them into your community, into your product, and let them know what they need to do, give them the best chance for success. you're going to want to do those on a daily basis. So you want to use that delay for that. So we're going to set up day one email, and we're going to click email messenger. So we're going to send them an email, and we want to delay it by a day after they sign up. So this is, and pick, where's it going to come from? Who's it going to come from? It's going to come from me. And rule groups. In this case, we don't necessarily need to filter this out. If somebody's just getting onto this list, then I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to click next. And we've got, it's going to come in. We're going to put our subject line in here. Welcome to day one. And then we're going to pick our template. Sorry, it seems to always be a little bit slow when I'm going through this. There's a lot of things going on this page, so sometimes it's a little slow. There we go. And I want to actually pick this one. I need to go back and delete email template 6. I'll show you how to do that here in just a minute. Okay, so now I've got my email. We're not going to worry about editing it at this moment. You can go in, edit that to your heart's content. You guys all know how to do that. And then we're going to delay this by 1 day. Just bear in mind that 1 day is related to when they were added to the list. So it's not 1 day prior to the previous step. It's 1 day from when they were added to the list. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. I wish it was you could insert a step into any particular spot here and have a delay of the previous step. But right now it's when they entered the funnel. And so we're going to click review for sending. And what we'll notice, the benefit of that, it's going to put it in the right sequence here when we do that. So we can go ahead and make this live. But then you'll just want to be aware, okay, so we've got this, but now if we want to insert a step before that, we have to edit the other, and we want to space the delays out. You have to go back and edit the delays for your other steps to sequence them properly. So let's set that example up. And this is just something to be aware of so that you kind of map out your sequence the way you want it to be so that you don't have to fudge around with things too much. So, so we'll go we'll say day 2 email, and we'll do email again. We don't need our rule group. And we're going to send it from our Yoga Funnels HQ. We're going to send it from my name, and we're going to click next. We give it a subject line. Welcome to day 2. And click on our user templates. And I'm going to pick our left align template here. And we're just going to scroll past this, click next. And now we're going to set our days delay to 2. And I would probably use, if you're just using a content sequence or delivering content via email sequence, I would go ahead and set a send window. That way, again, you're most likely to have your customers actually see your email and open your email and click your email, which is what we all want. That's going to keep them engaged. It's going to keep them engaged and active inside of ClickFunnels as well when they click those emails. So definitely I would most often set up an actual send window when it makes sense. Don't do it for registration emails because they want those right away. But for just daily content emails, set a send window to deliver them between 7 a.m., 8 a.m., when people are first kind of up for the day and starting their work to, no later than, say 8 p.m., but generally whatever the end of your normal business day would be is a good cutoff there. That way you don't send something 2 hours after somebody shut down for the day, and now they're going to get another 100 emails before the end of the day or before the next morning when they would receive it or see it. So yeah, so we've got that. Let's go ahead and make this one live. And now the issue is, okay, we've got our sequence here. We've got day 1, day 2. Oh man, what if I want to put another email in between this one and this one? Well, I can't really do that. If I want to put a different email as my day 2 email, and I want day 2 to be day 3, and say, I had 30 of these emails. Now I'd have to go in if I wanted to put another email after day 1 because I want another piece of content in there. And so I want day 2 to be different, and I want all the other steps to just bump down. We can't really do that with action or with follow-up funnels the way they're set up. You actually have to go in and set the delay on this step. You have to actually go into this step and edit settings and go to schedule, and you can click these little tabs up here. Once you've gone through the first steps, you can actually set, and now you have to set this to day 3 and click review for sending to save that, and then make and go to our review. So now it's day 3. Now you can go back and set up one with add a new step that has a 2-day delay that will get inserted in the middle of here, which isn't that bad when you've only got a few emails. But when you've got 20 or 30 or 40 in your sequence, if you want to add one in the middle, it's really kind of a pain. So just be aware of that as you're mapping things out, how you want to structure those things, so that you can hopefully map out your content, your framework in advance, get it all written, and set your delays the way you want them to be in advance, so that you don't have to mess with it too much after the fact. So it's just definitely one of those things, just like your funnel, you kind of want to figure out what the foundation of your follow-up funnel is first, so that you can properly organize things and set them up properly right out of the gate, instead of having to add something and insert something in the middle later. You can definitely do it, but it does take a little bit of work if you've got a long sequence. So hopefully that makes some pretty good sense for follow-up sequences. Again, they're attached to a list, and actually let's start by making a new one just so we can kind of show what that looks like. So if we go back into Actionetics, go back into follow-up funnels, because this is the one thing we started with the sequence that was already created. Let's create a brand new follow-up funnel and walk through that process so everybody's super clear on how that works. We won't go through and create all the steps and everything, but we'll start with creating a follow-up funnel. So we're going to create a name. We're going to call this YFS test sequence. And we're going to put it in the CF Code Lab tag. And then it's going to be who will we send, or who will receive this follow-up funnel. And so send to all existing contacts on list. This is a new feature that was added. And so this is going to set this up to send to everybody that's currently on this list. Otherwise, if you uncheck this, it will only send to contacts that sign up from today forward and go through. So this comes in handy if you've already set up an automation sequence to send out a series of emails, and you don't want to send, but you want to switch over and you want to use a follow-up funnel. Instead of using an automation sequence, you want to use a follow-up funnel now. You can create the follow-up funnel, but you don't want that to go to all the people that are already on the list, because they already got that stuff through another source. We're creating a new source for that data. So we want to uncheck that box so that we can only send it to people that are new moving forward. So that would be the reason to uncheck the box. Otherwise, if it's a brand new sequence and you're starting and you've got a list of people and you're like, hey, I want to set this up and I've never done this before, and all of my buyers do want to start getting this, like for starting a new challenge, I'm going to go ahead and create this, and I'm going to set everything to not be live, and then I'm going to turn them all live and deliver my content. Then you can do that, and you want to send it to everybody that's currently on the list. And so now we can go in and then pick our list that we want this to go to. So we want to go this to our test list. For example. And again, you can attach multiple lists here if you wanted to, or you can attach it to one, and then create your follow-up funnel. And then from there, it's everything that we just went through. From there, you're going to pick the first thing it's going to want you to do is add a step. So we'll create our welcome email. And we're going to click add email messenger. And we're going to go through all of this. Get rid of our filter rule here, but you could leave it. Certainly could. It's not a bad idea to have the within the last 31 days. You might want to make it 90. And if it's somebody's just registering or been on the list a short time, they're going to be active anyways. And then we're going to pick our template. Oh, got to put in a subject line. Welcome to Yoga Funnel Secrets. And we picked our template, or we need to pick our template. And now it will let us go through.
And we're not going to worry about editing the email. We've been through that. And now, when do we want this to happen? Okay, well, we want this one to happen right away. And we don't need to send a window because we want it to happen right away when somebody gets added to the list. But bear in mind, for those people that are already on the list, if you're doing this at 4 in the morning or midnight, if you click make live, it's going to go immediately. So if you already have people on a list, be aware of that. Most of the time when you set these up, it's going to be a new list that nobody's on yet. So you'll create the list, then you'll set up the sequence, and then you'll attach the, when you sell the product, you'll attach the product when somebody buys it to add them to the list, and then they'll start getting it. So, but if you've already got a list of people that you have a lot of people on, and you don't want them to get an email in the middle of the night, just be aware of that as you're doing your setup. And you may want to wait to turn it live until 8 a.m. in the morning, the next morning, and then flip the little toggle that turns it live. So we can say this is no delay, review for sending, and then it's going to give us our overview, right? And then the option is to make it live or save it as a draft. You can even send a test here as well. So you see kind of your little preview, and you can send a test if you want to. But in this case, hey, I've already got a bunch of people on this list, and I don't want it to go live because it's, it is noon on a Saturday. I don't want people to start getting this until Monday morning. So I'm going to wait, and I'm going to save this as draft. And then it's going to come in, and it's going to show me that it's not live. And so what I want to do is then come in Monday morning at 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. Mountain Time. So it's 8 a.m. Eastern Time, whatever you want to do, and then toggle it live. And then people will start receiving that email at that time when it goes live. So hopefully that makes sense, and you'll want to do that for all of for all of your steps. If you have setting up a whole sequence, make sure they all start out as not live, and then toggle them live when you're ready. Because if you come in and you don't set the first one live, but the next ones are live, it's just going to bypass this first step and go to the next step. It's going to pick whatever one's live, and it's going to do that if people are already on the list. So just be aware of that, is that it's going to skip over the steps that aren't live. And so you want to make sure none of them are live, so they haven't gone through any steps. And the other thing that you might want to do is not actually attach any lists to that when you're setting this up. Jeremy says, in that scenario, could you set a send window and make it live, then come back and remove the send window after the existing contacts have been added? Yes, you could be able to do that as well. My concern is that if you do that, like the whole thing I saw earlier about trying to set it to send now and toggle in and out of send window, it should work perfectly well, but just make sure it doesn't get a little buggy on that one. But yeah, you certainly could. The other thing that we do quite often is we actually go in and we will set up and we'll edit the settings, or when we set up the test funnel, we don't actually attach it to a list. So you can set it up when you first set it up to not actually have it send to a list. So you don't have anybody attached to it yet. And then once you get it all set up and everything is turned live, and this is probably honestly the way that most people want to do it, is to start out with an empty sequence that you don't have attached to a list yet. If you have an empty list, attach it to the list right off the bat. But if you've got a full list, so like I have my CF Pro Tools list, if I want to set up a new sequence and I want everybody on that list to get it, but I don't want them to get it until it's ready, then what I would do is set up a follow-up sequence with no list attached to it, which means it's not going to send to anybody. And then I would go through, set up all my steps, and then I would turn them all live, and then I would go back and edit the settings, and then I would add my list. And then as soon as I add my list and update the follow-up funnel, then people will start getting that sequence. So that's another way to accomplish that. It's probably a little simpler to do it that way if you've got an existing list. Normally when I see people setting this up, they're starting from scratch with a new product, new list, new follow-up funnel. So there's not a whole lot to worry about. But if you're in the case where, again, so say for example, CF Pro Tools, I want to set up a new follow-up sequence, and I want to set that all up, but I don't want anybody to receive it and start receiving anything until I'm ready. Then I would start by creating a new follow-up funnel, leave the list empty. So I would again go into my follow-up funnels here, new follow-up funnel, and then test
with no list, attach it to my group, and send to all existing contacts. Yep, I want that in my scenario. I've got CF Tools. I've got a list. I want to send it to everybody that's already on the list. Create follow-up funnel. And now it's going to create it, but there's no list attached. So it's only going to go through, it's not going to send to anybody yet. And then I would create my first step and go through from there. And then when you're ready, go back and attach your list to it. And then that list will start going through. So hopefully that makes sense. Any other questions I can answer on follow-up funnels? These are the ones that are a little bit, can be a little bit daunting at first, especially because there's so many different things you can do, but they're super, super powerful, especially when you take into consideration that you can add to a list, you can remove from a list, you can add tags, you can do all kinds of things with follow-up funnels using your Actionetics steps. We use those quite a bit in the One Funnel Way in doing and providing and delivering products is going through and using those actions to actually add a tag at a certain time so that people unlock content that moves from that point forward. So alumni content, we have special alumni content. So we're going to add that tag that they're an alumni member after they've finished the follow-up sequence. So you can just make that one of the steps in your follow-up funnel. So that makes it super powerful so that you can automate a lot of the things that move people through certain things. And also, again, you can have somebody that's, when they buy something, you maybe want to add them to the buyer's list. And then once they've gone through that sequence, you want to add them to your Seinfeld, your daily Seinfeld list, so that they start getting those Seinfeld emails, but only after they've been through your buyer sequence. Maybe you don't want to send them the daily broadcasts that you normally send out until they've actually finished your buyer sequence, because you don't want to overdo it with the emails right off the bat. They're new to your world. Then maybe you don't want to send them all your daily emails. You want to send them a 7-day sequence related to your product. And then after that 7-day sequence, you want to start sending them the daily Seinfelds. So you start by adding to the buyer's list, and then you have a follow-up funnel that says, hey, after 7 days, anybody that got added to this list, remove them from the, or maybe you can even leave them on the buyer's list, but add them to the Seinfeld list at that point. So that's another kind of cool way to manage your lists and who's getting what messages in what sequence. So if there's any other questions there, let me know. Let's see if there's anything else that we wanted to cover on this one. I think that pretty much covers up what I wanted to go through as far as follow-up funnels, broadcast messages, automation tabs, different events we have, product delivery, email delivery, text messages, all those things. And we're running at 2.5 hours now. So I know it's been a long session. So I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, especially on a Saturday morning. So it's always super cool to see everybody jump on. And I appreciate your time so much. And we do have the recording going, so I'll definitely get this recording pulled down and put into the members area, the CF Code Lab members area as soon as it's available. And we'll get that up there. And Jeremy says, let me just drag this over here so it's on the screen. Jeremy said, is there a way to trigger an action based on a contact taking action, like clicking a link? Yes, absolutely there is. It's not necessarily, do you mean clicking a link on a funnel page or clicking a link in an email that's part of a follow-up sequence? And feel free to unmute yourself if you want to, Jeremy. Like in an email, absolutely. And so let me just run through that real quick. So I'm going to drag this back out of the way and let you show you what show you what that looks like. So if we go in and take a look at our broadcast here, and let's say I want to actually let's do it in one of our follow-up funnels here. We'll add a filter for that. So we've got a registration sequence. We'll just do it in this one, this test with no list. And then let's go in. Actually, that one doesn't have any steps on it yet. So let's do this test sequence one where we have some steps. So you would add this in a filter rule. So it's not necessarily triggering an action. Let's see if this answers your question. So we want to edit our settings for this. And so this might draw you down to what you want, or it may not be exactly what you're looking for, but we do have the ability within broadcasts and also email steps. They work kind of the same way. So broadcasts are specifically broadcast messages that are sent. You can say filter out and only send this, only include and only send this to contacts that have met these requirements. And we can say they actually clicked a broadcast, which means they clicked a link within that broadcast. There's no way to say, if you had 5 links in an email and they were all different links, you wouldn't necessarily know that they clicked on link number 2, but you can say they clicked a link within this broadcast message. And so generally I would recommend that you're only going to put your links in your emails, except for the ones in your footers. Those are kind of hard, but we want to know, did they interact with an email? So if you're looking for something like, hey, I want to know for sure if somebody clicked a specific link in my email, make sure every link in that email goes to the same place and you don't have the footer links and all that in it. But we can say they click the broadcast and that's equal to, and then we can say, okay, this specific broadcast message had the link in it I'm worried about. So I want to send a message to only those people that clicked on this link in this broadcast. Hopefully that kind of answers the question. You can also do it for email steps. So you could set this up in follow-up funnel. So you could set several different pieces of content within a follow-up funnel and have one be send an email. The first one has a link in it. And then the next step says, hey, send them another email, but only send it to those people that did not click. So the only people that never clicked on my previous step. And so, so it could be day 2 email, right? So you could say, hey, I want to send my day 1 email. So I'm setting up a step for day 2, and I want to send them the day 2 email, but I only want to send them the day 2 email if they never clicked the link in day 1. So that's a couple of ways you can do those different kind of rule groups. And then Dan says, what about if someone clicks on a link or a button on a funnel page? Is there a way to set a tag? There is not currently without custom code for that. What you can do, and we might get into this as an example when we get into some of the custom code stuff with Ajax, is you could actually custom code a way to say, hey, if somebody clicks this link, I want to behind the scenes fire a form, especially if you've already got their email. So say they're on a step where they opted in already. They've opted in and so I know their email address. I want to submit that email address via Ajax to a hidden form I have somewhere. And that hidden form action has an automation on it that says apply this tag. So if they click this link behind the scenes via Ajax, opt them into another funnel, and that funnel has an action on it to set a tag. That's really the only way to make it happen. You could do that with a link or a button, but it takes some custom code. And we can go through and do that as an example, hopefully.
So an example of that might be in a members area. You could have a button that says mark this lesson complete, which would add a tag that would unlock the next lesson section.
Yeah, certainly could. Just do it again via Ajax. You set up a series of custom forms that nobody ever sees, and you can submit via Ajax to those pages, and those pages will set the tags, and then those tags could unlock in the members area. What you probably won't see at that point is if they've loaded the members area already, just because they have that tag now, they won't see that members area content change until they refresh the page.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a little bit of a delay. Tags getting applied usually happens pretty quick, but sometimes it might take a minute or two. So again, even just refreshing that page for them, it might work, but sometimes it might not actually unlock until they log out and log back in, or it might take a few minutes. So yeah, definitely a cool concept. In theory, should work great. In practice, it might not work 100% of the time.